My idiotic friend literally doesn't work for 10 years while he's getting his master's degree, and despite the fact that we've been begging him to do something to put on his resume, he claims that he will figure it all out once he's graduated. But unfortunately, now that he has graduated, he literally cannot find a job, and things have gotten so bad that he's now asking to move in with me and my husband. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have a friend that moved to another state to pursue a college degree using his savings. This friend is always calling us and talking to us and asking for our advice, but rarely, if ever, puts it to use. We've come to the conclusion that it's not so much that he wants our advice, but rather he's hoping that we will be supportive of his ideas. We've been suggesting that he should have at least a part-time job while in school, so he wouldn't completely deplete his savings. His response was that he wanted the full college experience and didn't think that having even a part-time job would allow for that. Now, admittedly, I'm not empathetic here because he was starting college in his 40s. I went straight out of high school and at times worked 3 jobs to make ends meet. So the full college experience, in my honest opinion, includes financially struggling while trying to have cheap fun, but I digress. Skip ahead 4 years and he finished his bachelor's and decides that he wants to pursue a master's degree and wanting to switch from cybersecurity from accounting. Now again, he asked my husband and I for advice, and I suggest that he get a full-time job and work on the advanced degree part-time in the evenings, knowing full and well that he's pretty much depleted his savings at this point. My husband points out that in IT and cybersecurity, at least in the United States, that certifications are more important than degrees, and it's cheaper to pursue. My husband also let him know of mentors to follow online that could help get cheap or free vouchers to cover the cost of some of the certification exams to make it even cheaper for him. My husband also suggests that he get a full-time job, and if he doesn't want to use the accounting degree, then maybe try getting an entry-level help desk job, just to get the IT experience on his resume. Well, jump ahead another 4 years, and our friend decided to pursue 3 master's level degrees at the same time, all instead of getting a job. 2 of the master's degrees are in IT and cybersecurity related, and the third is an MBA. As he's finishing these degrees, my husband and I both asked if he was actively looking for a job to start after graduation. He tells us he just wants to focus on finishing school and that he'll worry about a job after he's done. We try to impress upon him that he has the resources at school for pursuing employment that would make the process easier, and it wouldn't take much time away from his studies. But his response was to say that that would still be available after graduation and that he'll deal with it then. Another 2 years later, up to present day, and he is still unemployed and complaining that since he doesn't have any work experience for the last 10 years, his resume basically only has his degrees, and he's being told his degrees make him overqualified for entry-level positions. He contacts my husband and I saying that he's researched the job market, and where my husband and I live, the market is better for cybersecurity. He then had the audacity to ask if we would sponsor him to move back to the East Coast where we live. That way, he would have an easier time applying for jobs here. Now, what's his idea of sponsorship, you might be wondering? Well, that involves living at our house for free for 6 months while he's looking for a job. And it's like, bro, absolutely not. I am not your mom, and my house, my food, my utilities, and transportation are not free for me, so they're not going to be free for you. Besides, I already gave you my 2 cents over and over, and you should have taken it instead of getting in the situation you're in right now. Okay, dude, the second you let that guy move in is the moment you will never get your house back ever again. You can bet he will live there for the rest of his life if you allow it, and he will absolutely never leave under any circumstance. And this guy has it completely backwards, by the way. The full college experience is working while going to college. It's having a part-time job that has awful hours, where you barely get any sleep and you're still getting your work done. Like seriously, this guy went a decade without working, and now he's got all these degrees and he can't do anything work-wise. Like, that is so dumb. So no, I do not think you should ever let this guy move in because my God, he would never move out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for filing a police report on my neighbor after they literally scratched my car in a way that has gone down past the paint? Because right now I'm very pissed off and I seriously am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my upstairs neighbors are very careless, and today they dropped a window screen on my first newer car, and this is the one that wasn't a total crap box ready to fail. I keep it clean and nice because I worked for a while to get it to this point. Anyways, my upstairs neighbor's kid was putting in an air conditioner today, and he pushed the screen forward and out instead of sliding it up, and he was clearly fighting with it and got angry and just pushed it. Well, my car is right under their window. It somehow missed my hood and slid down the side, and I was standing outside and I saw it happen, and I was just completely baffled. He came down with a big goofy smile on his face, grabbed the screen from me, and just started to walk away. But I said to him, "You damaged my car," and he just kept walking. Granted, my upstairs neighbors don't speak much English, but it's also frustrating because you need to stay here and have a conversation with me. This isn't the first time stuff like this has happened, but today it's my car and I'm very annoyed. The dad was even working on his car in the driveway as well, and he didn't even do anything about it. I said to him, "Your son dropped a screen on my car," and he just shrugged and pointed to his tire that he was working on. Now at this point, I'm about to call the local police station to report it, but I don't want to be a jerk about it. But also, my new black car is scraped to the metal. I've also texted my landlord and they basically said, "Oh no man, that sucks." I've also tried cleaning it off, but it's just there and scraped to the paint in other little spots. So seriously, am I the jerk if I do this? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, you've tried to do this every which way possible to try and find some kind of solution. You tried talking to them directly, you tried talking to the landlord, and literally everybody's brushing you off. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, you better believe I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna get a police report going and I'm gonna be like, "Listen, these people damaged my car and they're refusing to do anything about it." Like, there's no excuse for that. If you damage someone else's property, you need to pay for it. And these people absolutely need to do that. They need to step up and do the right thing here, because you did not ask for your car to be damaged, and these people were being reckless, so that definitely means it's their fault. Today, I messed up by accidentally hiking a marathon when I thought I was going on a trail for something much smaller. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation truly is a comedy of errors. To start things out, I dabble occasionally in hiking. I've had a couple of backcountry trips in my younger years, but as of lately, I am pretty out of shape, and I'm mostly working an office job. In the past year or so, I've done maybe 5 or 6 hikes that a friend of mine would drag me on, maybe 5K, 10K max, but they felt okay. All this to say that I probably have just enough experience and little enough actual fitness to be dangerous to myself. Well, visiting a place out of town this week, I knew I wanted to do a pretty significant hike for me, and I cruised All Trails for a good one, and I found the Allmeyer Lookout at Lake Minnewaca. All Trails said that it was a 23-kilometer and an out and back hike, so I figured, okay, a challenge, but I'll hike 12, take a break at the summit, and then hike 12 back out. Knowing this is the longest I'd ever attempted, I set a boundary for myself that if I hadn't reached the summit by 2:00 p.m., I would have to turn around and kiss that gratifying view goodbye for the sake of getting back to the car by sunset, and trying to be realistic about having to trek the same distance back out. Well, my first mistake was not understanding that All Trails gives you the one-way distance of an out and back hike. I prepared myself well in the morning. Bear spray and bells, plenty of food and water, layers of clothing, sunscreen, emergency supplies, and my medications. And this is one credit I will give myself. I did ensure that I had everything I needed for a big hike. I also had this handy-dandy new Garmin watch to help me track the hike, and that was really cool. And so I set off. Hour 1 was delightful and flew by as I chatted with another family on the trail. They turned around at the first pretty bridge, and then I was on my own. Hours 2 and 3 were also lovely. I was marveling at the views, enjoying the fresh air, and generally vibing. My body felt great, even if I was feeling the burn. But oh, sweet summer child, if only she knew what was coming. Hour 4, the ascent started, and I was feeling pretty pleased with myself. I figured since it was about noon, that I was way ahead of schedule, and would certainly be at that majestic and coveted viewpoint well before 2 o'clock. I started listening to an audiobook, and channeled my inner warrior as I started huffing and puffing my way up the mountain. Well, this is where I started to crack. I severely underestimated how much harder it is to consistently hike up with no flat reprieves. Regardless, I persisted for 2 more hours. There were lots of breaks and one very nearly puking moment that I was able to stave off with some Gatorade, some banana chips, and some medicine. And thank goodness I had my pocket pharmacy with me. This is also where I peed trailside for the first time. Despite my best diligence and efforts, I did indeed find a tick on my belly later that day, which was really disgusting. All the while, I'm watching the numbers tick upwards on my Garmin. The kilometers seem to be going by so slowly, but I chalk it up to me being a chunky lady with little legs and elevation being harder and slower. Well, I summit, I take some photos, and then I head back down. And thank goodness downhill goes way quicker than up. Now for the rest, I'm thinking I was mostly in a fugue state. My phone was on low battery, so the audiobook had to stop in the interest of keeping the last of the battery for emergencies and continuing to update my safety person on my locations. So I raw dogged the long way home with just my thoughts. Thoughts like, you can do anything, even if you're slow. This will be a new personal record and the hardest part is over. I also had the thought of, oh, do I remember how to jerry-rig a tourniquet if a bear rips my arm off? Oh, and sorry, side note, did I not mention I was in grizzly territory? I mean, I didn't bring the bear spray just for funsies. The way home seemed impossibly slow. Why are the kilometers ticking walking by so slowly when I keep putting one foot in front of the other? I'm definitely going the right way, so I guess I'm just slower than I thought perhaps. I finally, blessedly make it back to the car, and I traveled from 8:45 in the morning all the way till 7:15 at night. I mean, what a day! I beat the sunset and I had totally expected my legs to be jelly after 24 kilometers, so I'm calling it a win at this point. I eventually get back to the hotel and a friend cheers for me, where she says that I'm crazy for doing a 24-kilometer hike. Well, proudly, I pull out the Garmin app to show her my stats, and that's when I find out that it was set in miles. 24 miles! And with 1,000 meters of elevation to boot. For all of you who aren't aware of the conversion, it's about 40 kilometers, quadruple the distance I'd ever done in a day, which is almost a complete marathon. The combo of not understanding how All Trails measures an out and back, and not looking closely at the units of measurement on that fancy new Garmin watch, means I accidentally did a marathon and didn't even know it till it was done. So anyways, it's now morning, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to walk on the plane, because my god, my legs are incredibly shaky. Oh man, that's really funny, because I don't think anybody plans on walking 24 miles, dude. Even 10 miles of walking is a lot. I can't imagine doing, double that and then some extra 4 for the heck of it? Holy crap, that must have been crazy. But you know what? At least you hit your new personal record, because that truly will blow any record you have out of the water. And I'm sure next time you probably will not be doing something like that in the future. Would I be the jerk if I dropped out of my friend's wedding after he derailed my career and caused me financial hardship? Because right now I'm still incredibly pissed off. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my friend and I, who we will call Mark, have been friends ever since we were kids. We've been in the same industry and we worked similar roles for about 25 years. He started a contracting business in 2016, and 4 years ago, I brought him in as a vendor at the Fortune 500 where I was working. Well, Mark's business grew rapidly, and we're talking 5 times the employees and 10 times the revenue in a short time. He would often ask me to come work with him, and in 2023, he was overwhelmed and needed help, and so he convinced me to be his partner. The role in question was Director of Operations. I would basically run things and he would grow the business, and my compensation included earning equity in the business. Well, I left my secure job of 5 years with stock options, a 401k, etc. based on this offer. I emphasized my need for stability, knowing replacing the job that I left behind would take a long time and a lot of effort. For 2 years, I worked 60 plus hours a week, I traveled extensively, while Mark did nothing to grow the business. He was hard to reach and often missed meetings. His leadership was a complete disappointment. When I saw he wasn't holding up his end, I tried to secure new customers and projects, but he rejected every opportunity. This year, he's refused to take on new projects with existing customers, to the point that we've lost all of our employees. Well, last Friday he called, saying that he decided to completely shut down the business. My email access was cut off, and on Monday, I was offered 2 weeks severance and nothing for my earned share of the company. The letter states that my role has been eliminated due to downsizing and streamlining, and I now think that the promise of ownership was a lie just to convince me to run his business. His lies and actions have derailed my career and put me in a position of financial hardship. He won't answer my questions in text messaging or email and insists that I call him, but I want a paper trail. I was in Mark's first wedding, and I'm a groomsman in his second wedding this July, and at this point, I canceled the bachelor party fishing trip. So with that in mind, would I be the jerk if I dropped out of the wedding? I am too hurt by his betrayal to stand with him and pretend this is okay. What should I do? Okay, honestly, there's no way I would ever stick with this wedding. Dude, are you kidding me right now? This guy derailed your career. He took it all apart at his own self-interest. He basically lied to you and said, "Oh yeah, I'll give you all this stuff that you want." And then he turns around and says, "Oops, sorry, we're downsizing. See you later." And it's like, my god, what a crooked individual. So no, this guy does not deserve any favors, because he truly is a complete piece of garbage. My idiotic boss accused me of bullying after I literally just asked her a question in the middle of a meeting. So I decided to maliciously comply by reporting myself to human resources, resulting in a meeting that truly was a waste of time that eventually led to my boss getting fired. Here's how I did it. So years ago, I worked in a semi-public sector job as part of a successful team helping make life easy for local businesses. Our team boss took a good job in the private sector, and a new boss was recruited from a decent organization similar to ours in a different part of the country. She worked compressed hours Monday through Thursday and was off on Fridays. Well, a month or two into this, and although the new boss was quite particular about things being done her way and had upset a couple of my colleagues by criticizing their work, I'd had no problems with her. We had a team meeting where the boss said that our performance wasn't good enough, even though we were arguably the best in the country, and that she wanted to be more involved in what and how we did everything to ensure better quality, meaning that she wanted us to copy her to every client email so she could comment as needed before we sent another reply. Now, although this seemed inefficient, nobody argued, and I just asked her if it should wait until Monday for her to comment on any client emails received on a Friday. I can't remember exactly what she said, but at the end of the meeting, she asked me to stay behind and then told me in a heated tone that my question was bullying behavior and that it was unprofessional to ask the question in front of the team, and said that my actions were the sort of thing that HR would see as grounds for dismissal and that I should be very careful in the future. So I told her I understood, and when we returned to our desks, I wrote up every single detail of the entire meeting and interaction, and I sent it to the head of human resources with the explanation that as bullying was very serious and may not be reported by the victim, I felt duty-bound to report myself. I also laid it on pretty thick about being appalled by my unprofessional behavior and the fact that my career was likely at risk, and I clearly had a desperate need for training and discipline just to fix my dangerous ways. I also copied in my union representative. Well, within a day, me, my union representative, and my boss were all with the head of human resources, who, by the way, is a by-the-book professional, could find no indication of bullying or justification for my fears of an unprofessional bully in need of re-education. I was then asked to leave the meeting. My union rep stayed in, and I don't know what was said, but within 6 weeks, my boss was gone, and that same week, my big boss called me to thank me, as apparently he wanted to get rid of her but didn't know how to do it, which I truly find incredibly funny. Dude, I love the fact that you got rid of that boss because that lady sounds obnoxious. Here you are just asking a question inside of a meeting, and then she had the audacity to sit there and be like, you're bullying me, I need you to stop. And it's like, dude, nobody's bullying you. The original poster literally just asked a question, and you're trying to be like, wow, stop questioning me, you're bullying me. Like, what an idiot, what an awful boss she probably would have been. So good for you for getting this done, because honestly, that lady sounded like a basket case, and I guarantee you she's the kind of person who would happily tank your career if given the chance. Would I be the jerk if I decided not to skip my stepson's graduation, even though his biological mom is threatening to make a scene if I do show up? Because right now I feel very torn and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been married to my husband for 5 years now. His 17-year-old son is graduating high school next month, and I met him when he was 11 years old. I've never tried to be his mom, and we took things slow over the years that we've built a decent relationship. I help out where I can, and mostly I'm behind the scenes, like giving rides or school stuff, or making dinner when he's over. He casually called me his bonus mom a couple of times, which I took as a good sign. However, his mom, who we will call Jenny, has never liked me. She's never been openly hostile, but always cold and dismissive. I've never pushed her though. No drama, no trying to parent her kid. Instead, I've just tried to be supportive when he's with us. Anyways, he told me he wants me at his graduation. He said it directly and saved me a ticket. A week later, my husband gets a call from the school, and apparently Jenny emailed them and said only she and my husband will be attending, and that I shouldn't be allowed because of family issues. And we had no idea she did this. My husband called the school to clear it up, and when we asked her about it, she basically said I was overstepping and that graduation is for his real family. She told someone in the family that if I show up, she might leave or worse, not let her son attend. Well, her son still wants me there. He even told his dad, don't let her ruin it. My husband fully supports me going, but now a couple of his relatives are telling me that I should just stay home to avoid the drama. And I'll give you one guess about who called them about it. I get it's a sensitive day, but I'm not there to make a statement. I just want to show up, support him, and leave quietly like everybody else. So am I the jerk for insisting on going? Because right now I'm seriously frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for being hesitant, but in my opinion, I absolutely would be there, especially if the kid's like, look, I want you there. Because this day is not about Jenny. Jenny does not matter right now. It's the son and his graduation. And the fact that she wants to make this about herself is so unacceptable. So yeah, I think you would be the jerk if you skipped out on this graduation. If Jenny wants to make a fool out of herself, then honestly, that's on her. And I guarantee you that the son is going to remember that for the rest of his life, and she will never live that down. Which, by the way, is absolutely not your problem, and not something that you should concern yourself with in the slightest. Am I the jerk for letting my parents move to a more expensive place without telling them that I won't be coming with them? Because their entire living situation hinges on the question of whether or not I can help them pay for their rent. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background, my parents are just barely making it. My mom doesn't work and it's just my dad. Anyways, that's not important right now. My parents charge me rent nearly $600 every month, and they've been doing that ever since I was 16 years old. So back then, that was nearly all of my money. My parents are planning to move soon, and I overheard them talking about increasing my rent to $800 a month at the new place. Well, they didn't talk to me about it, and they just assumed that I'd come with them and suck up the increase. place. I later found out that the new place is out of my dad's price range unless I'm there paying the $800. And apparently my mom wants it because she likes it. Now here's the thing. I've quietly been applying for apartments in Texas behind their backs. I mean, I don't plan on moving with them at all. I'm ready to start building something on my own and I want to go to college. But if I don't go with them, they can't afford the new place. So basically they're banking on my rent to make it work. So am I the jerk for not telling them that I'm not coming and letting them move under the assumption that I'll be helping with rent? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what kind of parent is going to charge a child rent? I understand that some parents are like, oh, it's time to learn some tough love. But like, dude, just make him get a job and save up. Don't be like, okay, that'll be $600 a month, please. Especially if you have the capabilities of not only finding work, but also paying for rent yourself. Like, I can understand if there was some kind of like mutual dire situation where it's like, no, we need the money. Can you please work and help us pay rent? But in this situation, it just seems like the parents are being selfish and they're like, no, we're going to make our son work and we're going to make you pay $600 a month. And now with them trying to be like $800 a month, please, it just feels like they're trying to use you for their own purposes, and that's not okay. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation because your parents are being incredibly toxic, and you definitely do not deserve that. An entitled Karen demands that I move my campsite at a public beach, claiming that she wanted exactly where I was already setting up. But after I denied this Karen her request and told her that I wasn't going to move, she then went into a rage, saying that if I don't move, that she was going to destroy my campsite the second I left. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened Saturday. My family and I went on a camping trip at a fairly popular lake. I left early with my cousin to secure a site for everybody, but it got way too packed. We got there early enough that there was plenty of space for everybody there. We start setting up some tents, and this lady comes up to us and tells us that she is saving a spot for her family. We asked her which spot, and she actually gestured towards a whole 30-foot stretch of the beach. We then asked her where her equipment was, and she said it was on the way. To which I said, okay, well, it's a public beach and our stuff is already here, so I don't know what to tell you. And then I just continued setting up our tents. She tried to tell us that it was claimed, but I explained that it's first come, first serve, and that since it's a public beach, she can't decide that a portion of it is gonna be hers. Now, mind you, there was plenty of space all over, yet for some reason, she demands this spot specifically, despite the fact that we're already setting up camp. She continues whining as we continue to set up, and soon her big idiot husband comes up with a grandmother in tow, and she starts catching them up on everything. The husband is annoyed, but he doesn't bother us about it, and just starts to set everything up himself. Meanwhile, the grandma gets all angry. She says to us, well, that's fine. I'm going to destroy their camp as soon as they leave. I then asked her and I said, did you actually threaten to destroy my property? To which she proudly said yes. I then said, ma'am, that's actionable. And she was about to say something before the husband spoke up and told her to let it be. It was pretty tense for a while, and I decided to stay behind while my cousin got the rest of the family, but thankfully things were pretty chill between us for the rest of the day. But the entitlement vibes were pretty intense coming from these women. She was telling her husband that I told her she wasn't allowed to camp there because of our camp, but I just rolled my eyes at her, and I told her, I'm not telling you what you can or can't do. I don't have the authority to do that. We just set up our stuff first, and this is a public beach, so we have every right to be here just as much as you do. She then told me it wasn't fair because she had a big group coming, and I said, it's Saturday. Everyone coming here is likely to bring a big group too, us included. You aren't the only one, and life isn't fair. She then got pretty livid at me saying that, but you know what? It is what it is. Because this entitled Karen was just that, super entitled and very disrespectful. I can't imagine being so delusional that you would think it's okay to say, oh, I'm just gonna destroy your setup as soon as you leave. So not only were these people planning on destroying your property, but they also said it out loud for everybody to hear. Like, seriously, you've got to be either really dumb or you really are just a massive piece of garbage. And it's also so weird that they're fixated on this campsite specifically, because the original poster said it best. There is this massive stretch of beach. They could literally set their campsite up anywhere along that beach and be just fine. But no, they just have to have this spot. This is the only spot they could ever want, and if you don't hand it over, they're going to destroy your property. Like, that is such an insane leap in logic and such a weird sense of entitlement. It honestly should not have gone unpunished. So good for the original poster for standing up for themselves, as well as not taking this garbage sitting down, because this entitled Karen absolutely deserved to be put in her place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I asked my bridesmaid to drop out of my wedding wedding since she's refusing to follow one of the most basic rules I could possibly offer. Here's what happened. My fiance and I are having our wedding in a little under a year, and we are so excited. I mean, this guy is the best man a girl could ever ask for. But if you haven't been through the wedding planning process, it is a nightmare. And the costs, I swear, just keep going up every single day. We dropped close to half of our budget on our dream venue, and we're also skimping on other things, including having a very small wedding. This venue is amazing, but it is very strict on certain things. Smoking is prohibited, which is fine. And in addition, the herb, if you know what I mean, is outlined individually as a big no-no. So there's no edibles, no smoking, no dab pens, or anything, which is totally fine by me since my fiance and I don't smoke. Since this is a small wedding, the bridal party is also pretty small, but most of my bridesmaids are stoners. Well, my contract made me worried, and I have reached out to them about asking them not to bring any herb, including edibles. Now, every single girl except for one basically said you don't even need to ask. I wouldn't even think of bringing that to your wedding. This is your day. But the other girl, on the other hand, said that she was going to bring an edible to take after the ceremony. But I told her that it's specifically outlined in my contract that no guest or anyone can have it, or they will literally stop the wedding and everyone has to leave immediately. In addition, if you even have this on you, we will not get refunded for anything, and we will also lose the security deposit of $5,000. Well, she said to me, "It's fine, I know what I'm doing, no one's gonna know, and I was just gonna hide it from you anyways." Now, I still have time to talk to her again, but I'm very frustrated and very anxious because I could literally lose thousands of dollars if she gets caught. Even the website also specifically says that no one can bring that to the venue. My fiance and I are also planning on possibly having a dry wedding as we do not drink. So would I be the jerk if I asked her to step down? I plan on having a big meeting with everyone and outlining the contract again, and if she gets mad, then I'm just gonna tell her to drop out. What should I do? No, you would not be the jerk for kicking her out of your bridal party. Like seriously, what is she thinking? You specifically said, if you do this, we're gonna get in trouble. And the venue itself has said, yeah, you cannot bring that on our premises. So for this bridesmaid to be like, oh, you're not gonna know about it, I was gonna do it anyways. Like that is so inappropriate, it's not even funny. She's literally putting your wedding at risk, all because she wants to take an edible after the wedding? Like seriously, that can't wait a couple of hours? You're not asking a lot out of these people. And the original poster even said that in their state, this substance is illegal. So no, I don't blame you for wanting to kick her out, because if this was my wedding, I definitely would be doing the same thing, because she is jeopardizing you and everybody else's enjoyment of your big day, and you do not deserve to have that kind of added stress in your life. Am I the jerk for telling my sister to please stop talking about her divorce around me, because I feel that her divorce is literally her own fault, and I'm honestly so sick of hearing about it. Here's what happened. My sister and her husband are getting a divorce as he moved out of the family home and filed. My sister didn't see it coming, despite warnings that it could happen because she went behind his back. The story basically goes that she married him knowing that he had absolutely no interest in having his mom, stepdad, or half-siblings in his life. He didn't like his stepdad. He didn't want half-siblings. That was something everyone in our family knew. He was open about having no desire for contact. Well, my sister married him, had kids with him, and then decided he was wrong to deny his family for being steps and halves. So she was making contact and introducing the kids behind his back. She argued with him when he found out and said if nobody else, his half-siblings deserved to be included because they are the most innocent in his family. They didn't ask to be born, and they were not a part of any of the wrongs his mom and stepdad did. He told her he wanted nothing to do with them, and that they were not his real siblings anyways. He also told her that she had gone behind his back and had completely betrayed his trust, and he was not going to stand for it or allow their kids to see that man as grandpa or those kids as uncles and aunts. My sister doesn't want her marriage to end, but has also been pissed at her husband because he's correcting stuff that she told their kids about the stepdad and the half-siblings, and has told the kids that the stepdad and half-siblings are not family. She's mad at him for that because the kids are more resistant now to contact with their parental side and don't call them grandparents, aunts, or uncles or anything like that anymore. But on top of that, she also doesn't want to divorce her husband. It is a mess. It is absolutely crazy. My parents are encouraging her to open up and try to talk about it, but I'm much less sympathetic and much less patient. It's 6 months later since he filed, and I can't be around my extended family without hearing all about this. My sister goes from bad-mouthing her husband to then saying that she hopes he calls off the divorce and that they can work it out and be a family again. My sister also tries to talk to me just one-on-one about all of this. I think my reasoning for being so indifferent to this and being annoyed about hearing it is because she knew how I felt. fault. She knew what his boundary was regarding his family. She had a choice not to marry him. She had a choice not to go behind his back. So to expect that he'd be fine with it when she knew, regardless of what anyone thinks of his actions, still proves that she was not that smart and that the results of her actions should not come as a surprise. Basically, I just don't feel bad for her. I do, however, feel bad for the kids being caught in the middle. When my sister tried to talk about the divorce again 2 or 3 days ago, I asked her to stop talking about it with and around me. She asked how I could be so cold, and I told her, well, it's not like people didn't warn her. In fact, my parents did before they got married, because they didn't love how her husband felt about the half-siblings either. I also explained that I'm tired of hearing about this over and over again. It is honestly getting so old. So am I the jerk for speaking my mind to my sister? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your sister clearly made an awful decision, and it's one that was very calculated and very misleading. She literally went behind her husband's back and brought the kids behind his back to meet these estranged family members. Like, if I was in the husband's shoes, I would feel so violated and disrespected. Like, this is a very hard line in the sand. He very clearly did not want anything to do with that side of his family. So for the wife to do that, in my opinion, is a massive deal breaker. And I personally find it very comical that she's so suddenly surprised that he's like, oh yeah, I'm getting a divorce. Because what she did, in my opinion, is completely unforgivable. And if I was in the husband's shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My mom's boyfriend and next door neighbor played a horrible prank on her that left my mother as a complete wreck. And now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom, who's 59 years old, has been dating her next door neighbor who's 78 years old, and they've been dating for about 2 years. For the sake of the story, we'll call this next door neighbor Mark. Currently, she's out of state visiting her mother, and last week while I was at work, she called me in a complete panic. She said her condo kitchen, which is being remodeled, was flooding the entire building, and I needed to rush over with my spare key to turn off the water. I told her I'd leave immediately, but it would take me about 45 minutes to get there, and I suggested that she call Mark to try and break down the door since he didn't have a spare key. After hanging up, the seriousness of the situation hit me. I worried about the potential damage and the financial consequences for my mom, including lawsuits from other condo owners, and possibly losing her retirement. As I was drafting a message to my boss to explain why I needed to leave, my mom called me again. She said to me, "Don't go. Mark was playing a prank on me." And when I heard that, I was horrified. What kind of person thinks that this is funny? Mark knows my mom has anxiety and has been stressed about the remodel, and I just cannot fathom why he would do this. This morning, my mom provided some more context. She believes Mark did this out of pure revenge because she refused to leave him her key to install a wine rack as a surprise. And the more details that she shared, the more calculated it all seemed. He had sent her a picture showing about a foot of water with a message claiming her unit was flooding the building and that the building manager was trying to access her unit. When she called him for more information, he lied about a fire truck and police car being at the complex. He only admitted it was a joke after she told him that I was on my way. She sent him a text message expressing how cruel his prank was, and he responded by telling her to relax and enjoy her vacation without ever giving an apology. I'm very worried about my mom. If she ends the relationship, I'm afraid Mark might retaliate with another cruel act. Living next door to him means there's no way to avoid him. I need unbiased advice on how my mom should navigate this situation. How do you break up with someone who lives next door? How can I even begin to help her? Am I overreacting by thinking he could be dangerous for this prank? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, I really hope your mom dumps this guy, regardless of if he lives next door or not, because this guy sounds like a bully through and through. He literally pranked your mom all because she didn't give him a key to her house. Like, that alone is creepy enough, but also for him to lie like that and be like, oh yeah, you're flooding the entire complex. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and it is so uncalled for. But I will say, if there is one thing that bullies don't like, it is whenever they get exposed for being a bully. So if she wants to break up with him, if I were in her shoes, I would buy like a doorbell camera of some kind, or even set up cameras around the property, just as a safety precaution against anything that Mark could do. And that is such disappointing behavior from somebody that I'm sure your mom thought she could have a future with. Like, this guy's almost 80 years old, and he's acting like a complete toddler. So hopefully your mom dumps this guy, because the way Mark was acting, in my opinion, was completely out of line. My coworker who's worked at this job for over 30 years is making my life a living nightmare, and now it has completely destroyed my sanity, as I am so sick of him treating me like garbage on a daily basis. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old male, and I've been working at this restaurant for about a month now, and almost everybody seems nice. During service, there can be some stressful situations, but at the end of the day, we try to help each other out as much as we can. I say hi to everyone and I try to be friendly, asking how their day was and how they're doing and so on. Well, there's one colleague that just never returns the friendly vibe. He is a gray 50-something-year-old man who has been there for about 30 years. Whenever he wants to get something done from a new guy like me, he just shouts and doesn't even say please or thank you. And when things are not done in a certain way or asked in a certain order, or the wrong words are used when asking for a drink, he'll just straight up ignore me. He will shout at me when I'm looking for a wrong table, when I forget to take out the straws in the glasses, etc. Now, I get there are rules for a reason and that things have to be done in a certain way, but it's the way that he's trying to boss me around and trying to get things done that is just so inhumane. Also, when I ask him if he had a good weekend, he'll just say, yeah, without even looking at me, and then go on about his business. I tried to connect with him and have a good chat with him, trying to see the positives, but I simply can't seem to find them. Everything that I do wrong, he'll be letting me know, even when it's about absolutely nothing. Yesterday, I was finished with work, and we get to order a drink at the bar for free. He works behind the counter and scolded me for not finishing my glass of tap water, even though I definitely did. It sounds small, but there are so many remarks, and I'm just so fed up with it. Every small detail, every remark or glance is now piling up on me, and I just can't stand being near this guy anymore. It's like my armor fell off, and it's slowly getting to me now. I mean, one of these days, I'll throw a tray of glass in his face, and then I'm gonna get fired. And the thing that rubs me the wrong way is the fact that he only does this with new guys and not the girls. He's a 50-something-year-old guy who has gray hair and glasses, and he'll be playing friendly with all the teenage girls and being the smooth server to customers. But if he comes to new guys, he will be an absolute bully. And it is not just me, because other new guys have also come to me and said, be careful with this guy. He's destroying my sanity at work, and they can't really fire him since he's been there for 30-something years. He is an absolute beast of a server, but he's a frustrated little man destroying young coworkers. And I'm honestly having trouble dealing with this. It really grinds my gears that someone would be like that. I mean, what's the point? He can't be enjoying this, right? He is very work and productivity oriented, but he must realize this makes me a worse server than being constructive and an actual human being, right? I honestly feel like I'm at such a loss because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I would just say straight up that there is no point in working at a restaurant like that. That's just my gut instinct, especially when you see someone who's been there for 30 years and they not only haven't moved up from being a server, but also they haven't been fired for the way they're treating their coworkers. So to that end, I think you absolutely have no reason to even bother working at this place, because that guy alone would not make it worth it, because I guarantee you the managers do not care how he acts. But also, on that same note, this guy's trying to play buddy-buddy with the teenage girls because he's a weirdo. He's trying to get close to these female coworkers because in my opinion, he's a creep. And at the same time, he wants to avoid the male coworkers because he doesn't want you to get in the way of him being around these women. Like, this is all just some kind of weird, desperate power play from someone who clearly is an absolute loser. Now, I need to disagree with you on something because in my opinion, it is just not true. You said that they can't really fire him because he's been there for 30-something years, but that is definitely not true. In my opinion, anyone can get fired for anything, and just because someone's worked there for 30 years doesn't mean that they're above the standards set in the workplace. So if I was in your shoes, I would not only be looking for another job because you do not deserve this kind of garbage in the first place, but also I would be complaining to management. I would say to them, guys, this is inappropriate. This guy attacks and treats everybody like garbage, and he's making me and all my other coworkers feel like garbage as well. And based on their reaction to that, I think that might be an indication of whether or not you need to stick around, because if they're dismissive and they're like, oh, he's just been here for 30 years, you just learned to deal with it, then that's like a big red flag that you're like, okay, this place is not for me. But maybe there's a situation where they might do something about it and say, hey, you've got to lay off the new guys. The other aspect of this that I think you really need to consider is that maybe it's time to step up, lace up your bootstraps, and give it right back to this guy. Because if someone's going to talk to me like that at work of all places, you better believe I'm going to give that energy right back to them. I will absolutely be like, no, you are not going to talk to me like that. Because what do you have to lose? You've only been there for a month. The least you can do is set yourself up for success by saying, okay, if we're going to work together, you are definitely not going to talk to me like that. And just because this guy's worked there for what, 30 years, doesn't give him the right to try and talk to you like that. Remember, this guy is your coworker. He is not your boss. He has no power over you. So hopefully this all works out and you don't try to connect with him any further, because this guy sounds like an absolute loser and you deserve way better than what this guy's trying to give you. Am I the jerk for calling out the volunteer church organizer after all the awful things she said about my daughter-in-law? Here's what happened. So my daughter-in-law just lost both of her parents, her mother earlier this year and her dad when she was 15 years old. I love her like she's my own, and I'm so proud of her and how far she's come along. I am very involved in my church, and we were planning an event for my mom's kids. It coincided with my monthly sack lunch ministry for seniors, so in the morning we'd all make lunches and then we'd do other things. We would make friendship bracelets, run around, grill or tie-dye, stuff like that. My daughter-in-law is not religious, but she does like to give back, so when I invited her, she accepted. We got the lunch supplies and she helped with the lunches. She even offered to go deliver them to the organization that we work with, since she has a big car. Well, this is when the church organizer, who we will call Kathy, started having an issue. She thanked my daughter-in-law and said that would be all we needed from her all day and that she can go home afterwards. But I said no. My daughter-in-law is here to spend the day with me and have fun with everybody. Kathy then had the gall to make an ugly face as she said to me, she's not anybody's daughter. So I said to her, that's okay, she's my daughter-in-law. And I said that just in case Kathy didn't know. Kathy then made another ugly face and said that didn't count and that she didn't even belong here, which really ruffled my feathers. Because seriously, everyone should be allowed. If one of the dads wanted to come join us, I would have said yes. Like seriously, who cares? We got into an argument and my daughter-in-law ended up crying. Again, she just lost her mom. She left and told me to have fun, and I rounded on Kathy. And I told her that what she had just done was as unchristian as I'd ever seen, and that if she can't find it in her heart to welcome everybody to our events, then she should not be the volunteer organizer. Kathy told me, well, tough cookies if you don't like that, and then said I need to take it up with the church office. Now, a few other members overheard the conversation, and as I got ready to load up my van for the sack lunches, a few helped me and got to talking about how awful Kathy has been. After I left, they all cornered Kathy and said they would all talk to the church office. Well, needless to say, she isn't the organizer anymore, and she has been in this position for over 2 decades. She then ended up confronting me after church, raising her voice and getting in my face. She told me that I had ruined her life over my daughter-in-law not belonging to the church, and that she hopes I was happy. Now, I admit I did feel bad after that, but I'm not sure if I should. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna say it. People like Kathy in any organization are the reason why people stop going to said organization. And I'm sure all of us have met a Kathy in whatever church, club, or any kind of organization we've been a part of. They try to gatekeep anybody having fun, and they try to act like, oh yeah, you're not really welcome here. You're nobody's daughter. Like this lady absolutely had to go. So honestly, who cares what Kathy thinks? She is literally an idiot for the way she excluded your daughter-in-law, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My crazy cousin decides to have an intervention for me as she's convinced that I have some kind of substance problem. But after showing up to my own intervention that I never knew I needed, I quite literally laughed in my cousin's face and explained why she was wrong and incredibly stupid. But now, as a result, my mom is saying that I need to apologize to her as she thinks that I did my cousin a great injustice. So I'm honestly very frustrated and very confused, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I have a condition which causes me to overproduce earwax. I don't tell people about it because I was bullied for it growing up, and only my wife and my parents know. Every other day, I have to put medication in each ear. I let it sit, and then I flush it out with a rubber-tipped syringe. This prevents ear infections, vertigo, permanent hearing loss, and worsening of my tinnitus. I have dealt with all of these things to some extent, so I stay on top of my eardrop regimen. If my alarm goes off when I'm with others, I go to the bathroom for 20 minutes and then I just knock it out. If I don't follow my schedule, then I forget, so I can't put it off ever. 2 weeks ago, my mom hosted a family dinner. My cousin, who we will call Karen, saw me waltz off to the bathroom to do my thing with my syringe in hand and asked me what I was doing, but I said it was just a minor medical thing. She kept pushing, but I didn't want to say anything because she gossips like crazy. I told her it's personal and then I scooted past. When I left, she was just standing in the hallway. She then asked me what took me so long and why the toilet didn't flush, but I said it was none of her business, and she responded by saying, oh, well, I didn't mean to offend you. Fast forward, and last weekend, my friend called me to invite me out to lunch with some of my buddies, and he said to meet up at his house so we wouldn't have to drive separately. Well, when I arrive at his house, I find Karen and my friend sitting solemnly on the couch. Karen then said that they were here to talk about my problem and that they just wanted to help out, but I said there is no problem. But right then and there, suddenly it clicked in my head what this was all about, and at that moment, I couldn't help but laugh a little bit out of shock. She then looked at me and said, what's so funny? And I said to her, first of of all, why didn't you talk to my wife or my parents? But she said to me, well, I didn't want to involve any of your enablers, which when she said that just made me laugh even harder. She looked annoyed and said that she was done trying to help me out. And when I said that's all right by me, she stormed out of the house. Well, when she left, I explained to my friends. They knew I have a condition, but never pressed me on it. And I guess when Karen approached them, they thought that I was lying. Obviously, I'd rather they know than worry about me being an addict when I'm definitely not. But regardless, I thank them for their support. Well, apparently, Karen had reached out to all of my friends through my social media, and we all got a good hearty laugh out of it, which Karen must have heard because she was, of course, eavesdropping. She then burst back in and screamed at me, "You need to tell them the truth," to which I said, yeah, that's what I just did. Eventually, my friends kicked her out, and we went out for lunch, and I thought that was that. Well, my mom called me yesterday and told me that she had talked to Karen about the entire thing and explained. She said Karen was upset with me and essentially called me a jerk for not explaining and for laughing in her face and embarrassing her. But I said I was embarrassed and that Karen had no right to my information. I think she shouldn't go around snooping and making any kind of assumptions. But my mom still thinks that I should apologize. So am I the jerk for the way I reacted to what Karen tried to do to me? What should I do? There is no way on planet Earth you are ever the jerk in this situation. Karen literally jumped to the assumption that you are some kind of addict and said, okay, now's my chance to have an intervention. Like seriously, how deep in drama do you truly have to want to get to try and host some kind of intervention based off of information you don't fully have? Like that is completely insane in my opinion, and there is no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and you absolutely did not have to give her any information if you didn't want to. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not being willing to shave my head so that my sister who has cancer can use my hair to make a wig? Because right now, my mom and sister are furious with me for saying no to their request, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so before the story, I want to give some kind of background. Our dad is Pacific Islander, and our mom is just white. My 14-year-old sister and myself were both born in the United States, with our parents divorcing when I was 6 years old. However, I continued to live with my dad until I was 11 years old, whereas my sister stayed with my mom. I live with my mom now because my dad wanted to move back to the islands, but I didn't want to leave all of my friends. However, I know much of my family who still do live in the islands, and I try my best to keep in touch with my roots. This is mostly thanks to my dad, but my sister doesn't do this. Now, about 4 months ago, my sister was diagnosed with sarcoma, which is a kind of bone and tissue cancer. She's had to go through a lot of procedures and spend a lot of time at the hospital, and I've spent a lot of it with her and helping her, and while I don't mind helping her out, when she did get diagnosed, my mom expected me to drop literally everything to be there to help her, meaning that if she was at the hospital, then I'm at the hospital as well. If she's undergoing surgery or a stressful procedure, I have to stop everything I'm doing, including school, and sit in the waiting room as support. But all that I could handle, and it was a bit annoying, but honestly, whatever, I'll do it. However, recently the doctors finally decided they wanted to do chemotherapy, and my sister's hair has begun to fall out. So she shaved her head and is extremely upset about it because she really loved her hair. Well, the other day, my mom suggested that I shave my own hair so that a wig can be made out of it for her. For reference, my hair goes down to below my butt. However, the thing is, you're only supposed to cut your hair when a family member passes away, and it's a tradition my entire family on my dad's side upholds. And to be frank, I like my hair, and I have no desire to shave it, as I've been growing it out since I was a kid. I explained this to both my sister and my mom, but both of them are insistent that I should do it, and that a tradition like that is meaningless, especially since my sister might die anyways. But still, I told them no. They've both asked me several more times, and my sister even begging me. I once again reiterated why I wouldn't, and that asking me to was insulting. Now my sister is upset and saying that I obviously don't actually care that she's struggling, while also saying that I'm not trying to be understanding. However, I have bent over backwards for her, so the fact that she's going so far honestly really hurts. But she's also never asked me of anything like this before, and she is really upset. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your mom and your sister are asking way too much of you right now. It's one thing to show up for doctor's appointments. It's one thing to be there for surgery or any other procedure that might be stressful. And it's one thing to drop everything, including school, just to be there for her. But for them to be like, oh, you need to cut your hair so your sister can have it. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and I just don't agree with that. In my opinion, that is taking it way too far, and that's them asking way too much of you. And because you told them no, it literally has led them to bullying you just to try and get their way. So instead of buying her a wig or, I don't know, covering up her head or something like that, or at least explaining to people, hey, my sister has cancer, so that's why she has no hair. Like, instead of doing the obvious things, they literally want to be like, okay, you have to go bald and your sister's gonna have your hair. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and I just don't think that's a good idea. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your mom and your sister are taking this way too far, and just because you told them no, doesn't mean that you are automatically in the wrong. I found out that my husband has a secret folder on his phone that contains secret sketchy photos of my sister, and even after confronting him about this and exposing him for the things he's been doing, I'm honestly so hurt, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been married for 2.5 years and together for 9, and this incident happened this morning. My husband was sleeping, and I took his phone to send pictures from his phone to mine, and I saw his hidden album that I didn't know about, so I clicked it to see what was in it. Well, there were a lot of photos and videos that he took of my sister. They were pictures of her in a bikini or pictures showing her legs and feet. Now, it's important to note that there are videos of pictures that he took, because it seems that he found an old phone of my sister's where she has pictures and videos, and it's videos of her trying on a new swimsuit or something like that. I mean, you can see him recording what is on the other phone screen of her whole body, and then him zooming in on very specific parts of her body. There are also pictures that he took last month of me and my sister in bed while we were just hanging around and chatting with our phones in our hands. He was on the sofa in front of us on his computer, and he apparently took pictures of us and then zoomed in on my sister's body. Another one was all of us with family and friends around the dinner table, and he had his phone below the table taking a picture of her feet. And these are just a few examples of what I found amongst others. And there are also a couple of my best friend, but it is mostly all my sister. Well, I woke him up and I confronted him, and he said that he was sorry, and it apparently started 2 years ago when we had a huge fight just before getting married. Now, for some context, we had a big blowout a little before our wedding, where he discovered I was on an app chatting with people that he didn't know. Now, there was nothing sketchy going on, but I was hiding it, and I was getting close to some people and being friends with them without him knowing. I also had an account to some websites that told stories that were a bit more spicy, if you know what I mean. And I just told him that I like those spicy stories, and that's just a part of who I am. But it is literally all just for me to read. Well, he justified what he was doing by saying that it started then, that he got interested in that website by checking it out, and he started projecting some of those stories into our real life. He said he always felt sorry and wanted to stop, but he didn't. Well, I told him that the issue is not about whatever he likes, but the fact that he has pictures of my sister, who, by the way, I have a very complicated relationship with. We are close as family, but there was always some tension and jealousy between us. He said that this was the most darkest part of him, and he promises to go see a therapist and never do it again. But I just don't know if I can get past this. How am I supposed to behave moving forward? How are we supposed to keep hanging out with my sister and her husband? I feel that everything is broken, that my future is shattered, and I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this is absolutely so bad. This is seriously not okay, and there is no way on earth I would ever let this slide. That's just my opinion. Like, sure, some people can be more forgiving, but I'm one of those people that honestly, I just would not put up with this for a second. And if I did, then there's got to be some crazy extenuating circumstances to like even keep me in that relationship. Like, this guy's taking creeper shots of your sister and keeping it in a hidden folder without your permission or your knowledge. Like, that sentence alone would be echoing through my mind pretty much for eternity, regardless of whatever excuse this guy comes up with. Like, it really seems like he's trying to justify this in some kind of way by turning it on its head right back at you. And that is insane in my opinion. Like, literally, there is no good excuse for that. So honestly, all I can say is that I am so sorry that you're dealing with this, because what your husband did, in my opinion, is completely unforgivable. Am I the jerk for supposedly exploiting a live painter at my wedding after this lady claimed that I wasn't paying her her fair rate and that I was taking advantage of her? Because right now, I'm kind of blown away by all of this, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I'm getting married next month. I went to a wedding recently with a live painter, and I wanted to also have a live painter at my wedding. So I found out that most live painters in our wedding area cost upwards of $6,000, and I realized it wouldn't work in our budget, so I let the idea go. Well, I brought this up to my cousin in Mexico, and she told me me that she had a friend who we will call Anna, who was quite talented and she could ask her for me. Well, Anna called me and we discussed getting her to be our live painter, and she showed me some of her previous work. She is very talented, and she mentioned that she wanted to build her portfolio in our wedding area, and I would be her first live painting client in the United States. She said that instead of payment, if I covered her art supplies, airfare to the wedding place, and a hotel, she would be our live painter. Well, this worked out to be just over $2,000, and I extended her hotel stay for a week after the wedding just so she could go around and explore. We worked this out weeks ago in May, and then yesterday she texted me saying that she didn't feel comfortable working with us anymore as she has done some research and found that the market rate for someone of her talents was $3,000, and that if I paid her an additional $1,500, she would be fine with everything. She said that the rate in her area of Mexico is about $2,000, so she was happy before our deal, but since the wedding area is in the United States and that they have a different price scale, she said I was exploiting her. Now, at this point, I had already paid for all of my big expenses, like the venue and the catering, so I don't have an additional $1,500 to pay her. So I texted her back saying that it was unprofessional to change her previous arrangement and that I felt like she was pressuring me into paying more by hinting that she might not show on our wedding day. Now, I did know the price of live painters before I asked her, but I was willing to pay in relation to our agreement, and I didn't know that she hadn't researched beforehand a price guide. She suggested our agreement, so I assumed that the discount on top was due to her being friends with my cousin. I have already reimbursed her for booking the flights and the hotel, so I am aware that she could make good on not turning up to the wedding. If she mentioned this before flights and hotels were booked last week, I would still think it's completely unprofessional, but I still would have tried to compromise right then and there. We have not signed a contract, so I'm not sure what I can even do in this situation. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? You are not the jerk in the slightest, and I think your friend Anna absolutely played you like a fool. She had you get all these things set up, and then she's like, oh, you're trying to exploit me. You're gonna have to cough up another $1,500 just for me to show up. Otherwise, you're gonna be exploiting me. Like, what are you talking about? Anna is literally the one who suggested this price point, and the fact that she's doing this right now after you booked everything, that in my opinion is completely insane, and it's another reason why if you want to have any kind of arrangement like this, you need to get things in writing. I don't care if it's a family friend or like a friend of a friend or someone that you really think you can trust. If it's some kind of like mutual contract between the two of you and there's thousands of dollars involved in said contract, then in my opinion, it all has to be in writing. This doesn't mean that you don't trust her. It just means that you want to cover your base no matter what happens. And this story is a prime example of what could go wrong in this situation. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You did not exploit this live painter because honestly, she suggested the price from the beginning. And if she's unhappy with that, then honestly, that's on her and not you. Am I the jerk for banning my in-laws from my house after they performed a very cruel prank on my daughter? Because right now, I'm honestly starting to second guess myself. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I'm married to my husband, who we will call Matt, and I am currently pregnant with our first child. I also have a 7-year-old daughter who we will call Fern from a previous relationship. I have never had the best relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, due to them judging me for having a child out of wedlock at the age of 22. They have never fully accepted me and my daughter, but I've just brushed it off to avoid drama until they took things way too far at my daughter's birthday. A few months ago, I held a birthday party for my daughter, which included all of my in-laws, and everything was going great until it was time for the cake. When my daughter was blowing out the candles, my mother-in-law thought it was a good idea to smash my daughter's face in it, and in the end, my daughter ended up having hot wax all over her face, and it ruined the cake. She was sobbing, and all the while, my father-in-law was laughing. Luckily, she wasn't badly injured. However, my daughter was really looking forward to this party and was devastated for days afterwards and was really confused as to why her grandparents would do this to her. After the party, my husband and I discussed things and decided to ban my in-laws from our house and future gatherings. We also made it clear that we would not show up to future family events if my in-laws were present. Well, when we announced that, they did not take this well at all and decided to post on social media bashing me and my husband for banning them from their grandchild's life over a harmless prank. And by the way, when they say grandchild, they mean my unborn son and not my daughter. Now, at the present day, me and my husband decided to throw a gender reveal earlier last week, and we obviously didn't invite my in-laws. It was a very happy occasion, but now some relatives from my husband's side are telling us that we were cruel to have not invited them and that we are receiving a lot of backlash. I also think it's important to mention that this isn't the first time my in-laws have done something this cruel to my daughter without apologizing. They've made hurtful jokes relating to my daughter's skin color. For reference, she's half Middle Eastern and has an olive skin tone. They have also mocked her and bullied her for not having her biological dad present in her life and got extremely defensive when I defended my daughter. Now, I don't believe that I'm in the wrong, as I am only looking out for my family's safety and I love my daughter very much and that I would do anything to protect her. But this whole mess has me second guessing myself and has made me think that maybe I'm being way too cruel. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and I think you are completely in the right for banning your in-laws. Let's kind of go over this for a second. They shoved your kid's face in a birthday cake and severely hurt your daughter in the process. Not just physically, but also emotionally. Like seriously, if my grandparents did that when I was her age, I would be freaking out. I would be like, wait a second, why would they do that to me? It's also pretty obvious that the in-laws in this story are just straight up racist. Like, I'm just gonna call exactly what I'm seeing, but they're literally making fun of your daughter because of her skin color. Like, that's obviously what's going on right now, right? I mean, that is pretty on the nose in my opinion of someone who's just blatantly racist. So it kind of makes sense why they would mock the fact that her dad's not present and literally try to ruin her birthday by shoving her face in the cake. And in my opinion, anybody trying to defend that and be like, oh, it was just a harmless joke. First of all, it's not harmless. The daughter very clearly got harmed. But also, I would question if they also feel the same way that your in-laws feel about your daughter. Like, are they also secretly racist? Like, they literally just don't care about your daughter in the slightest. They're more concerned about the in-laws' feelings than anything to do with the daughter who is very clearly hurt. So no, I don't blame you for kicking them to the curb, because in my opinion, that's exactly what they deserve. My entitled dad shows up to my graduation literally a day early and then expects me to skip all my finals just to hang out with him. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad was mostly an absentee dad who I had met maybe 4 other times at this point. And to top it all off, he has never even been to my college before. He and my stepmom wanted to fly in for my graduation, and they wanted to come a week early so that we could hang out. Well, I told him no, don't come until the Saturday that the ceremony is on, because I'll be working on finals and finishing up my 2 internships until Friday night. Well, guess who calls me at 2:00 p.m. on Thursday? He says to me, drop what you're doing and meet me at the bar near your campus because I'm in town and we need to celebrate. Well, I spent the next day and a half using every spare minute I wasn't studying, trying to explain to him that I'm busy with school. He actually said to me that since I already had a good job lined up for me after graduation, that doing finals wasn't important anymore, and I only see him once or twice a decade, so that should be my top priority. And you know what? He was pushy the rest of the time too. For starters, he was trying to get me to let him spend the night in my small 1-bedroom student apartment so that he could drink with me and all my college friends that he has never met before. Then he was telling me to no-call, no-show my student job so that we could get breakfast together. And honestly, all I have to say is that this guy is a buffoon. I'm now in my 30s and I haven't seen him since then, and I honestly don't plan to. It just blows my mind that someone I saw so little could feel so entitled towards my time and decisions during an important life event. And I'm honestly so glad I don't see him anymore, because that guy was seriously the worst. Wow, your dad is a complete deadbeat. Like seriously, the way he's acting is so confusing. So you're telling me he doesn't show up in your life except for like what, 4 other times? And then he's gonna fly into town against your will and be like, oh yeah, now it's time to party. You need to drop everything you're doing. It's time for us to celebrate. Like, dude, what are you doing? You don't even know the person you're trying to party with. You're literally just embarrassing yourself, and you're literally trying to disregard everything that your kid's doing by demanding that they give up on their finals and their internships. Like, this guy's a complete idiot. Who in their right mind who could even say, oh yeah, I'm your dad, would be like, yeah, you should just not go to your finals and we can get drunk together. Like, clearly this guy didn't go anywhere in life, and he wants to make sure that you end up in the same boat. So honestly, I hope you keep that streak alive and you stay away from that guy for as long as possible. Because from the sounds of it, it does not sound like this guy is a good person in the slightest. An entitled Karen tries to steal my walker right from underneath me, claiming that it's not mine and that I'm actually stealing it from the store we just walked out of. Things got so bad that this lady actually got the manager involved in some kind of desperate attempt to make me hand over my property. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, as well as the audacity of this Karen to say the things that she said to me. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I had a stroke 6 years ago, though, meaning that my balance and vision got messed up pretty bad. I can walk maybe 20 to 25 feet on a flat surface without any kind of help, but I need my walker to take long walks, and I take it with me whenever I go somewhere. Now, I normally have weekly groceries delivered to me at my apartment, but every month or 6 weeks, depending on schedules, my mom will take me to a specialty grocery store where I can get a lot of prepackaged meals that I just have to put in the microwave for a while. So we were on one of those trips, and we were waiting in the checkout line. Now, the walker that the insurance covers was a piece of cheap white plastic. So last Christmas, my mom bought me one that is black steel and titanium composition. It also has a pouch on the back for storing things, and when I need a break, I can lock the wheels and it has a fold-out bench that I can sit on. So while my groceries were being checked out, I folded out the bench and I sat down waiting. When we were done, I got up and unlocked the wheels while my mom rolled out with my grocery cart. Now, I had barely gotten maybe 5 feet when the entitled Karen of this story walked up and grabbed my walker. She said to me, "I'll be taking this." And I just said no, and I jerked it away from her and proceeded to follow my mom out to the parking lot. Now, usually, my mom will load the groceries in the car while I leave the walker on the side, and I walk my way around to the passenger seat. And then after loading the groceries, my mom collapses the walker and puts it on top of the groceries. Well, this entitled Karen followed us out to the car and was literally waiting there, tapping her foot, all while we were loading our groceries. I did not trust her, so I just stood there holding onto my walker. My mom said, "Go ahead, get in, it's unlocked." And I just shook my head no, and subtly pointed the lady as to why I wasn't getting in. Well, thankfully my mom understood and finished loading the groceries. When she was done, she came up to me and folded down the walker while I walked to the passenger side door. My mom folded down the walker, put it on top of the bags in the car, and was closing the door. But right then, this entitled Karen started screaming, "You just stole store property." Now, I don't know if someone had gotten him or what, but a manager type person came out and asked what was going on. The entitled Karen was screaming about how we were stealing the walker and that she needed to use it. The manager then asked my mom about it, and she said straight up that it was mine, and even showed him the plaques bolted on it that have my name, emergency contacts, and my medications and the schedule I was on, just in case I needed them. Well, this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She kept screaming, "I need it right now. You are done with it. Give it to me." The manager then eventually told her that it was mine. It had information on it that pertained only to me, and that if she needed help, they could find her a mobility scooter or something. Well, this entitled Karen didn't like this, and suddenly went from a shrieking harpy to a sweet old lady. She said, "Well, maybe she could leave it here, and I could use it and leave it when I'm done for them to come back and get it." So the manager asked us, "Well, would you be okay with that?" And my mom, knowing that we would never see it again, said that we would not be doing that. We had other places that we need to go. Well, when we said that, this entitled Karen started screaming again, so we decided to just drive off. And I don't know how it ended for the manager, but I really hope that he survived that crazy interaction. Wow, this Karen really upsets me. Seriously, who walks up to someone and says, "Oh, I want that right now. Give me that walker, I need it more than you." Like seriously, what is she doing? Not only does she not work at this store, but she's also following someone who clearly needs it and is trying to act like, "Oh yeah, you're just stealing." As if her accusing you of stealing is somehow going to make you hand it over to her. And you were 100% right. If you left that walker for her to use while you were gone, you would never see that thing ever again. This lady screams as some kind of dishonest monster who obviously would follow somebody out to the parking lot to try and steal their belongings. So good for you and your mom for standing up for yourselves, because the way this Karen was acting is absolutely insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I will not follow her weird house rules and that she and her husband need to admit that they messed up? Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and when my parents divorced, I was 6 years old. My younger sister was 4 years old, and my younger brother was 3. They shared custody of us ever since then 50-50, but now I don't have a custody thing set up because I'm an adult now, and I'm no longer a part of any of that. And at the moment, I stay with my dad. My mom remarried when I was 11, and my siblings were 9 and 8. Her husband was divorced and had 2 kids of his own who were 8 and 6 years old. He had primary custody of them, but in the summer, they would get longer with their mom. My mom and her husband moved in together a month before the wedding, and from that point on, they created these really strict and really weird rules that basically made sure that we were never a blended family and that there was always some kind of animosity. And here are just a few of those rules. They would say that if you want permission for something, you have to ask your new parent and not the regular one. Also, no biological siblings only playing together. Everyone has to mix in. There was also a ban on bedroom doors because they wanted to see that we're mixing in. It was also required that every day you would tell people in the family one thing you love about them. You also must give everyone hugs before leaving the house, and also you can't say someone's a stepbrother or stepsister, or even a half-sibling in the house. There were others, but those were the most damaging ones. My mom told me that she wanted us to be a happy blended family, and she did not want favoritism of parents or siblings. She told me I didn't just have a brother and a sister anymore, but I had two of each, and now I also had a second dad. And they enforced this too, or at least tried to. The hugs never took off, and I never told her husband or his kids stuff that I loved about them, and I never loved being with them. These rules led to fighting, and it also pretty much caused chaos if they took us places. We were all grounded pretty much all the time at their house. We also started doing stuff to make sure family vacations couldn't happen together. Her husband's kids would make plans with their mom to go to her for weeks when my mom and her husband had vacation plans booked. My siblings and I would ask dad to book his vacation first and then put it in their app. My mom and her husband would also get so frustrated, and they'd try to give us these talks. Mom would come to me and say that I was the oldest and I needed to set an example, and now that I no longer go to my mom's house, my siblings don't want to either, and they make a bigger deal out of it. My mom called me yesterday and told me that I needed to help create the family unit that they fought so hard for before it's too late. She mentioned me being the oldest again, and how I should be there for a week when we can all be a family. But I told her no, I don't want to. We are not a family. I told her that they messed up. They need to admit it, and they need to find a way forward, because none of the kids want to be a part of any kind of family that has this many rules. Mom then started crying down the phone to me, asking why I wanted to ruin her marriage and rejected the family that they were trying to be. She was asking how I could say that they failed when we wouldn't even try. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk. Your mom and her husband sound obnoxious, and she's enforcing rules that literally nobody wants to follow. Instead of allowing this to happen organically, she's literally trying to force it in some kind of weird power play. And that's crazy to me. You can't just force that and be like, oh yeah, we're a family now. It's time to hug each other before we enter or leave the house. Like, I don't know about you, but that would drive me crazy. And if anything, it's just gonna have the exact opposite effect. Like, those kids aren't gonna like each other. They're gonna learn to hate and like despise each other pretty quickly. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. And I think the fact that you're 18 is probably the best part about this story, because at the end of the day, you really can decide where you do and don't want to live. And I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not want to live in that house. Am I the jerk for tidying up my son's apartment as a surprise? Because right now he is very angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Me and my husband, both in our 60s, asked if we could spend a night at my son's apartment while he was away. He lives in a different city that was along the way to the destination of our vacation. Well, he said yes, and then he gave us the keys. He told us beforehand that he has gotten some new furniture and is not quite sure how he will arrange it. He told us that the apartment was a bit messy, but if it didn't bother us, then we could borrow his apartment. When we got to the apartment, I decided that I should surprise him and clean the apartment for him. His carpets were a little dusty, so me and my husband carried them to our car to clean them in our own backyard once we got back home, because my son lives in a block of flats. I also put some of his new furniture in places that I thought looked nice so that he wouldn't have to do that himself. We told our son a week later when he came to visit us to get his keys, but he got visibly upset. He told us that we should have asked his permission to take his carpets, arrange his belongings, and move the furniture, or at least given him a heads up beforehand instead of doing this behind his back. He told us that it was disrespectful towards him and his personal space for us to move his stuff without permission, and that it is not something guests should be doing in another person's home. So are we jerks for tidying up my son's apartment as a surprise? What should we do? Okay, in my opinion, and maybe I'm alone in this, but yes, I absolutely think you're the jerk here. You really should not try to mess with someone else's house just because you're like, ooh, I'm gonna do it as a surprise. Like, rearranging someone's personal belongings is really disrespectful and, in my opinion, very violating of somebody's privacy, because that's not why you were there in the first place. So for you to move things around and try to pretend like, oh yeah, I know what you really want. This is something I would like, so you'll like it. Like, that is so annoying, and I would be upset as well. And yes, your son is 100% right. You did this behind his back. And in my opinion, his anger is absolutely justified, because he trusted you to stay there and be a good house guest. But now he probably thinks you went through all of his stuff and possibly snooped around looking for stuff that is none of your business. Because in my opinion, intentions do not excuse poor behavior, and I really think the way that you and your husband acted was completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for cutting off my toxic father and his wife after they treated me and my girlfriend so poorly in the past? But now that our baby is born, my dad and his wife are trying to work their ways back into my life, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and honestly, this story has a lot of backstory, but I will try to keep this as short as I can. My parents divorced when I was 13 years old. My dad, let's call him Bob, quickly found a girlfriend who we will call Karen. Karen is 7 years older than Bob, and she is already a grandma, and I'm not really a fan of her. As a quick character description, she is very intolerant, especially with other people's opinions, and does not accept obvious boundaries and is very demanding. Let me give you a couple of examples. She'll say things like, "Your mother really didn't do a good job with teaching you manners." She also said towards my 16-year-old sister, "You are not dressing ladylike, and you are a bit chubby," even though, by the way, she is very skinny. When I tried to say something about that, my dad immediately put it down, and he would just say that she is right. When I got to know her, I didn't think much of it, but through the years, her behavior became more annoying. I couldn't do anything with my dad alone, and I noticed a character swap in my dad. When I was a child, he was a very loving and caring dad. We used to do a lot of sports and fishing, and we spent a lot of quality time together. Well, it really changed last year. We were on a trip, and I was told multiple times that I should be so grateful that I'm allowed on it, even though it was my birthday present. The relationship between Bob and Karen also seemed a bit off. She is clearly in control, and I would dare to say that she is gaslighting him. Over the years with Karen, he distanced himself a bit and also tried to exclude my mom from family events, and did spend more time with Karen's family than his own children. But honestly, this all leads to my main point. My girlfriend and I found out that she was unexpectedly pregnant. This was a big thing because we are still very young, and she was still in her last year of high school and I was in university, and Bob and Karen were supposed to marry 3 months after we found out. So this is where the drama begins. At first, we didn't plan to keep our baby, but it all came along different on the day that we might not keep our baby, if you know what I mean. Long story short, during the procedure, my girlfriend had a lot of remorse and was very afraid. So when she was going to the room for the surgery, in there she had a panic attack. So the doctor decided that he wouldn't be able to perform on the circumstances. It was very shocking news, since it was the last day that we could do it legally. This was a very tough time for our relationship, as well as very challenging for her mental health, because we didn't plan to become parents so young. For reference, we are 20 and 18 years old. Now, my dad was perfectly aware of the situation, as I called him multiple times crying. Well, not even 2 weeks after the surgery day, we got a call from Karen and Bob telling us that my girlfriend was not invited to the wedding, as it would take away the focus from them. They were not willing to find any other ways to solve that differently. We asked if there would be the possibility to tell the family before the wedding and more, but they were clearly not changing their minds. My dad even went so far as to tell me that he was upset that he didn't get the chance to tell my grandparents about the pregnancy because I did already tell them myself. Well, because my girlfriend was not invited, I was clearly upset, and I tried to tell them that I thought it wasn't very appropriate to do that, especially in our situation. But Karen told me that I was being very ungrateful since she had done a lot for me. But honestly, even to this day, I don't know at all what she's done for me. Anyways, the following conversations were awful. My dad told me that I did upset Karen and said I should apologize to her. I asked him I was willing to do that if he told me why she was so mad, but he just shouted at me that I should know why and to just do it. At this point, I just didn't want to say sorry, especially without knowing the reason why. My dad told me that Karen's feelings were very hurt and it was all my fault, and she decided to not talk to me anymore and basically give me the silent treatment until I apologize. So I told my dad that I was also very hurt, but he responded that this was not relevant at all since they apparently never uninvited her and we just made up a false accusation. Now, I was ready to apologize for whatever was going on as long as one apology came back as well. Well, apparently this was an unacceptable suggestion because the shouting all started again. We then decided to pause the issue since our relationship was falling apart. When we came back to it a couple months later, I decided to put up some boundaries because the fights were very emotionally draining. I told him that I wouldn't apologize if nothing came back, and I would not accept any shouting any longer. Additionally, he should accept my feelings and my side of the story, and we should just move on as I did. The response again was more shouting. "Who do you think you are? You are not in the position to determine anything. I am your father and much wiser than you are." And by the way, way, he sees himself as incredibly wise and knowledgeable, and is disappointed that no one believes him. Well, needless to say, their behavior didn't change, so I would not take his calls anymore, and he even tried to gaslight me with some messages. A week after my daughter was born, Bob and Karen wanted to come because they wanted to see her first, but I declined, partly because it felt entitling, and they weren't really interested in the entire pregnancy. They didn't even ask if it was okay for us. They expected us to accommodate everything. After one disgusting voice message, after I left a negative review on his weird therapy course he's been taking, I decided that this was a bit too much, and I cut contact with them for 6 months. Meanwhile, my sister has told me that he hasn't changed and that Karen even wishes us bad luck, all in some kind of weird ploy so that we will come back begging. Luckily, we are doing very well with our baby, and we are honestly so happy. My remaining family is on my side, but my grandparents urge me to get into contact again. So am I the jerk for cutting contact with them and therefore not letting Bob see his grandchild? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Bob and his stupid wife Karen sound absolutely obnoxious. They're intrusive, they're very rude to you, and they treated your pregnant girlfriend like garbage pretty much from the get-go. Like, that is completely unacceptable, and there is no good excuse for that. And I really think you're right about them being interested in seeing your baby. They didn't care about this pregnancy, and even tried to punish your girlfriend because she was pregnant. Like, this is all so backwards, it's not even funny. So for them to react in the way they're reacting right now, as well as all the gaslighting and mistreatment, it all adds up to them just not being good parents and people that you definitely do not want in your life. So you know what? I don't blame you for cutting them off, because your dad and his wife are super toxic, and unless they make some major, like, groundbreaking changes, if I was in your shoes, I would never let them around my kid. Am I overreacting for wanting to quit my job after my boss told me that he knew it was a wrong decision to hire me? And after dealing with his awful treatment for so long, I'm seriously at my breaking point, and right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female, and I really need some advice. So I have a big problem right now. I work at a small family restaurant during the summer holidays, and it honestly hasn't been a great experience so far. At the beginning, one of the waiters touched me inappropriately, who was the older son, who was also supposed to handle the bar. Well, nothing was done about it, and now both of the bosses hate me. He is Italian and a massive jerk, and she is a stewardess and honestly not very nice sometimes. Today was really awful because the son was on vacation for the second time this month for a week, and the boss lady had to take over the bar, but she wasn't there on Thursday and Friday because she had to fly, so I had to take over the bar. And that's not a problem in itself, but today was really busy. With the boss lady and her son, glasses are everywhere after 5 minutes because they hardly do anything. I didn't want to get in trouble with the boss, so I worked really hard to keep everything clean. By the way, I often have severe headaches, and today they were particularly bad. Anyways, I cleaned up everything and asked at 10 if I could leave now, but my boss said no. I should still do the dishwasher and asked if I could stay until 10:30, and I said yes because it wasn't really a question from him but more of an order. So I finished everything, but at that point, I felt really sick and very dizzy. Then my 2 coworkers came and brought me 2 fully loaded trays with even more glasses. I then started crying, more because I was really tired and it seemed like the work would never end. My stupid boss then got really upset and said that it was a bad decision to hire me, that we only had a 4-day week anyways, and that we only made my dessert. He went on saying that I had left early recently, but that was a month ago and not recently at all. And besides that, I stayed half an hour longer on Tuesday. He then said that there would be others who would do the work if I couldn't handle it. He then said quite angrily that I should leave now, and then went back to the kitchen. Anyways, on Friday, I get my tips, and when I asked him for it after a lot of hesitation, because I was really scared of him, he said to me, "Oh, but you can ask for that?" I then drove home in tears and had a really bad panic attack. My mom and brother asked what was wrong, and when I answered, my brother immediately went back to the kitchen to look at his phone or something. I think I totally overreacted or something like that. The reason is that this has happened before, and he is generally really mean to me, and I have to say the boss lady isn't much better. I only have 3 more days to work there since Wednesday will be my last day, but I really just don't want to go back. It's just that I sold 2 pairs of earrings to my coworkers, and I wanted to give them to them on Monday, and I would like to say goodbye to a few others. I'm only 17, and I'm only supposed to work until 10 o'clock. I really just want to know if I'm in the wrong here. Is this my fault again, like always? What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you didn't do anything wrong, but also as someone who has worked in situations like this, where you have toxic people running the show who are clearly taking advantage of you, I think it's really important to remember that these these people are absolute losers and you can find a better job literally tomorrow. Like, just think about the way this guy's treating you. He's working you down to the bone. He is overdoing it and forcing so much on your plate, literally just because he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to give this to his family members. He wants to make the girl who's going to quit in 3 days do all of the work as much as possible. So in my opinion, if that doesn't show that he does not care about you in the slightest, and that he is only going to make your life miserable for these next few days, then seriously, nothing will. It's also really important to know that people like this have no hold over your career. Like, sure, you work there for a little bit, and you probably are going to use them as some kind of like resume filler spot, but you do not have to use them as a reference or anything like that. So with that in mind, and honestly, you can do whatever you want to do, you are under no obligation to stick around and do exactly as they say. You really could quit and not come back for your last few days if you really wanted to. Like, what are they going to do about it? Like, seriously, think about that for a second. They're making your life miserable, and I guarantee you can find a better job than what these idiots are giving you, because these jobs are literally a dime a dozen. And in my opinion, I just don't think you should put yourself through that ever again. I caught my dad cheating on my mom for the 5th time in a row, and after dealing with this 4 previous times in my life, I'm now contemplating if I should even tell my mom in the first place, since she seems very apathetic about the situation as a whole. Here's what happened. So yes, I know what you're thinking. As the title states, this is the 5th time I caught my dad cheating on my mom, and honestly, I think at this point I really have lost count, and I really think my mom is just over it at this point. The first time was rough, and I even went out of my way messaging my dad's mistress and going off on her. They had to go to counseling with a pastor, but it clearly didn't help. The second time, I caught my dad again. I kept seeing a name pop up on his phone, and it was someone that I didn't know. So I cried to my mom, but she was more concerned with how I felt. She was shocked by this, but her seeing me cry, I guess made her realize that she's not the only one being hurt by this. The third time was just like the second time. Another name popped up, I told my mom, and she shrugged it off, and literally said, well, as long as he's doing his fatherly duties. The fourth time came along, and my mom still didn't care. Well, the 5th time was recently. My dad's been on his phone more often than usual, and a woman who we will call Vanessa keeps popping up. And here's the thing, I don't know of Vanessa. My dad even showered in the middle of the day today, which is something he never does. I got home from a day out, and he was not home. I called him and I asked where he was, but he just said he was somewhere. But meanwhile, it's 9:00 p.m. on a Friday. I mean, he's the definition of lazy. He hates going out, and yet he's out on a Friday night, but he just kept saying that he's somewhere. And that's when I knew. So I asked my brother to call him, and he said the same thing. He said, oh, I'm somewhere, why are you asking? And at this point, we both knew what was going on. So should I tell my mom? My brother and I both know that she's not going to do anything about it. They have zero love towards each other, and they are honestly just roommates at this point. And if she does do anything, she's gonna ask him what's going on, and he's gonna say no or make a joke about him cheating just to overthrow the fact that he is. And he's gonna storm away because he got caught, and no one's gonna talk to each other for about a week or two. What should I do? Wow, your dad's a horrible person. I can pretty much say that confidently. He's cheating on his wife actively, and he's done it, what, 5 times that you know about? Like, that is crazy to me, because you and your mom absolutely do not deserve that. Your brother does not deserve that. Like, he clearly just doesn't care about anything going on in this family. He doesn't care that he's ruining your life and your mother's life, and he's taking away so much happiness that all of you could be enjoying. So to that end, I'm really sorry that you're dealing with this. But if I was in your shoes, and I can only speak for myself, I would not only tell my mom that yes, dad's cheating on you again, but I would also tell my dad and be like, hey, the way you're treating mom is awful. This is incredibly disrespectful, and I can't believe that you're doing this again. Like, this guy is a massive coward, and he's such a terrible father, because what he's doing is unacceptable, and you and your family deserve so much better than this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents have changed dramatically after the pandemic, becoming lazy and spiteful people, even though I've tried to step in and help them in various ways. And now I feel like I'm at such a loss and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for the last 5 to 10 years, my parents have simply stopped living their lives for like no reason. They've never really had friends, simply because they like doing their own thing, and I totally respect that. But for about the last 10 years, they have had no one in their lives. My mother got the absolute fear of God put into her during the pandemic, and not long before the pandemic, she discovered from a doctor that she has an artery disease from smoking for the better part of 40 years. She has become pretty much agoraphobic, and everything has to be delivered to the house. I mean, you can see the sign of the store from her backyard, but it still has to be delivered. And she still won't go out to meet the delivery driver either. Whether it's groceries, lunch, dinner, odds and ends, or even like medications, all of it has to be delivered. And I just don't know how she is continuing to operate for almost 4 years like this. One of her main reasons for not meeting people in person and going into stores anymore is her saying that she's not dressed up for all that. But when you look at her, she's dressed completely normal. She thinks that she has to get all dressed up just to run into Walmart or something like that for what, 5 minutes? They also needed someone to do a little yard work back in the spring. It was just mowing the grass and trimming the bushes. It was nothing serious. My mother forces me to be at home when he shows up so that I can be the one to talk to the guy. And the whole time she's watching me talk to him through the glass door. When I step back into the house to tell her what he said, she retreats deep into the house to talk to me. She says to me, "He didn't see me watching through the door, did he?" And I just told her, "Mom, you're standing 10 feet away from us while standing in plain view of us. And you're watching while on the phone with Dad. Yes, of course he saw you." Well, she then said that this is one of the reasons she didn't want to hire him. Now, because the last doctor discovered that she had peripheral artery disease, she refuses to see a doctor for anything now. And instead, it always now has to be via the telephone. And if that doctor over the phone didn't tell her exactly what she wanted to hear, then she would just find another. It's exhausting trying to explain very basic medical things to her, such as trying to explain to her that antibiotics don't work on viruses and things of that nature. She's one of those people who will stop taking her antibiotics 3 days before they run out so that she has more for later so that she can take them the next time she gets sick without having to go to the doctor. She simply doesn't understand why that is so dangerous. She's one of those people that when she gets a new medication, the first thing that she does is read all of the side effects to know how bad it's going to get for her. And she does other stuff similar to this nonsense all the time. And the thing is, she never did this while I was growing up or even in my 20s. Both of my parents have also completely stopped solving problems in a logical manner. Take a medical problem that I'm currently having for an example. There is a bit of communication error between my doctor's office and the specialist he wants me to see. My main doctor's office won't call me back for the better part of 3 weeks. So I call my main doctor's office for the 4th time today to speak to the office manager just so I can finally get this all fixed. And when I tell my mom about this, she freaks out on me. I literally say to her, "Hey, so I finally talked to the office manager." And she responds frantic, saying to me, "Why would you do that?" I looked at her and I said, "Because the problem is now fixed." And I explained that I now know who I'm seeing and where I need to go. Well, my mom rolled her eyes. She said, "Oh my God, you just need to let this go." And she said this as if she's tired of hearing about it. I said to her, "No, I'm still having symptoms after 3 weeks. I need to see the specialist and now I can do that." Well, my mom just let out a frustrated sigh, but I continued and said, "I think I have IBS, Mom. I need to see the specialist. These symptoms should not be lasting this long." Now, she finally did let it go, but she seemed extremely reluctant to do so. She also just doesn't pay attention to the world around her anymore. I mean, she is just completely clueless now. And my mom was never the most active person ever, but she didn't just sit at home 24/7 and get dumber by the day either. Now, my dad is also in the same boat where he literally just won't solve any problems. We thought the upstairs AC was going out a few days ago, and I told both of my parents that I would help them make the calls and stuff like that just to try and get it looked into. Well, this became a huge thing all of a sudden. Both of my parents started screaming, "Oh my God," especially when they hear the AC slowing down just a little bit. Now, what's my dad's solution to this? He moves about a shovel full of yard debris from around the AC unit, and that's literally it. That's his entire solution. Meanwhile, we're dealing with 100-degree heat. They literally just refuse to have anyone come out and check on the unit. It is so confusing. They also have some of those ceiling fans in the house that are remote controlled. One of these fans is in their bedroom, and they lost the remotes for both of the ceiling fans, and they just don't even care. And now they just won't use the fan or the light in their bedroom, and they have no interest in getting it to work even though their bedroom is really dark. They also have some plumbing problems in the house that is literally just caused by the caulk around the spigot head in the bathtub and a sink. And guess what? They won't get that fixed either. And it's been like that for several years. I'm pretty sure one of them is leaking through a wall, and it's making a small soft spot on the hardwood floor in the downstairs hallway. And yet still, they won't even consider fixing it. If I offer to grab a thing of caulk and see what I can do, it then becomes a huge thing again that I tried to fix a problem. But this soft spot has been going on for years at this point. And this is just the more major stuff that I can think of off the top of my head. They both still work with my mom working from home, and my dad is an absolute physical specimen, and he is in great shape and sees his doctor regularly. But my mom has spiraled out of control since the last few months before the pandemic, and she just refuses to do anything at all, and she is now getting insanely lazy. And I just have to say, these are not my parents. I understand that they like to sit around and relax. I mean, I do too, but at least I take things seriously that should be taken seriously. I also also solve problems when they need to be solved, instead of waiting for years to do something about a problem. I just don't know what to do about them or how to help them anymore. Should I just take a step back and let them figure this out on their own? What should I do? Wow, this is really disappointing to hear, because it seems like, at least according to the original poster, their parents have always been like very motivated people, and they've worked hard to get things done for the most part, or at least at the bare minimum that anyone else would do. But now that they're 64 years old, they've just kind of like given up on everything, and then anytime you try to solve the problem, they freak out on you. Like, that's really weird behavior, and I'm honestly so sorry you're dealing with that. So hopefully there's some way this can turn around, because what you described sounds incredibly sad and very frustrating. Am I the jerk for refusing to financially support my sister after she decided to become a single mother? Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male, and I have a sister who's 34 who we will call Emily for the sake of the story, and she has always wanted to be a mother, but unfortunately she was not able to find the right partner. After years of waiting, I suggested that she try IVF treatment. I even helped her research the process and find some clinics. She loved the idea and decided to go ahead with it. Now, Emily had the financial means to afford IVF on her own, but it meant that she had to cut back on creature comforts and luxuries for the foreseeable future. 2 months ago, after her 4th round of treatment, she finally got pregnant. The whole family is very happy for her, and she's happy as well. She didn't expect it to take so many rounds of treatment though, so the bill ended up higher than she was prepared for. She does have enough money to support herself, but not very comfortably. She asked our family for help so she wouldn't have to make even more sacrifices. Our parents are retired and living on a fixed income, so they really can't contribute much, so this leaves me as her main source of potential financial support. Last week, Emily sat me down and asked me for money, and I have no issues with people choosing to be single parents if they can afford it, but I don't believe it's fair to ask others to finance such a personal choice, especially when there are significant long-term financial commitments involved. I have a wife and a newborn son. While we do have some extra money, we are using it to keep our own little family comfortable and save up for a bigger house. And for reference, we're currently living in a single-bedroom condo. I told Emily that I would not be able to help foot the bill, and Emily was heartbroken and furious. She argued that family is supposed to support each other and that I'm being selfish and judgmental. Our parents are also upset with me, saying that I'm not being a good brother. They think I should help her because she's family and that this is her dream. They're also especially upset because it was my idea and I helped her research it. I offered to help Emily by letting her eat dinner with us nightly since she does live nearby, and letting her use my car, which is cheaper to run since it is electric. But she said that's not nearly enough. I have my own family to think about, and I've got my own financial goals to achieve. I feel it is unreasonable to put myself in a difficult financial position for something that is Emily's personal choice, even if I did initially suggest it. Now, it's also important to know that my sister is a homeowner with a slightly bigger house than mine and makes slightly more money than I do. She can absolutely afford a child. She took from her savings to pay for the 4th round of IVF and is rebuilding it as fast as possible by not spending. It isn't like she didn't budget, she just doesn't like being frugal. So am I the jerk for not wanting to support her financially? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk in this situation. Emily is being incredibly selfish and is basically trying to guilt trip you for a personal decision that she made. The fact that your parents also were like, oh, you've got to help her out, that's her dream. Like, that's a really silly thing to say if you think about it. Like, this is a human being that she's supposed to be taking care of. And this is something that she willingly took upon herself, despite anything they tried to pin on the original poster. Like, he didn't force her to get into this. He was just trying to be nice and help her out. Like, for them to be like, oh yeah, you're in on this too. Or even like imply for a second that he's also responsible. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and that is not okay. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because it sounds like your sister is well off as it is, and she absolutely can afford this. A group of entitled jerks in an emergency room get angry and furious when my mom goes ahead of them after having a stroke, claiming that they had been waiting for hours and that she did not deserve any kind of special treatment. And I'm honestly still blown away by this level of entitlement. Here's what happened. So 2 years ago, my mom had the first of 2 strokes that left her disabled and eventually led to her death 19 months later. She complained of a headache for a few days and asked about going to the ER, but she said it was getting better. But the next morning, she displayed symptoms like she had with the previous stroke. She was confused and had a shuffling gait, and it was honestly not the usual symptoms, but I kind of knew what was going on. Since an ambulance would take her to the worst hospital in the county, I convinced her to get in an Uber with me to go to the doctor's office. But in reality, I was taking her to the ER because I knew she would refuse to go if I said that. By the time we got to the ER, I knew they would treat her well, but she was also having trouble walking, so I grabbed a wheelchair and I wheeled her in. I told the front desk her information and that she was having the symptoms of a stroke. Then we went to go sit down in the waiting room. About 3 minutes later, a nurse nurse came out and took us straight back to a room. Well, apparently there was a lot of grumbling from the others in the waiting room, which I was too stressed to notice in the first place. A friend was coming to meet us and she had to sit in the waiting room for a few minutes, and she shared with me the rest of what happened. She arrived about 10 minutes after we were taken back and walked into hearing people complaining amongst themselves. Eventually, people were going up to the desk angry, saying that it was unfair that some of them had waited for hours and that my mom had gotten special treatment. I guess some of them even raised their voices because the nurse who had gotten my mom heard them from the triage room and stormed out into the waiting room. He started outright yelling at everybody, literally talking about how people are seen in order of who is sickest, and that this woman who was taken back right away had a stroke, and there was a very limited amount of time to save her life. A few people tried to keep complaining, and he yelled again that anyone unhappy about it could walk right out the door and go to any of the other dozen hospitals in the metro area. He then called a security officer down to make sure no one started any further issues. So the moral of the story is that if you go to an ER and they make you wait, just be thankful, because it likely means that you're not going to end up disabled or dead. Wow, that is crazy to me. Imagine sitting in the ER room and being like, wow, that person who had a stroke, I deserve to go in front of them. It's like, are you that selfish that you would rather have somebody pass away instead of, I don't know, allowing people to go in the order of who's sickest? Because that nurse makes a fantastic point. They have to go in the order of who's really in need of their help. Like, this is the emergency room after all. So yeah, that kind of behavior really blows my mind, because I can't imagine being that entitled that you would demand to go in front of somebody who clearly could have passed away if they waited any longer. An entitled Karen keys my car after I take a handicapped parking space that she claims she got to first. And now, after reporting her to the police, as well as catching her on camera vandalizing my property, she's now in complete denial, claiming that we keyed our own car just to get her in trouble. And I'm honestly still blown away by this level of entitlement. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened roughly 2 weeks ago. My mother and I were pulling into a car park for a Home Bargains, and to my non-UK readers, this is a relatively large shop that sells basically everything for cheap. We drive a brand new convertible BMW, and trust me, this will be important later on. My mother pulls into a disabled parking space, and we get ready to go into the shop, and this is the last available disabled parking space in the car park. Now, for additional context, my mother has issues with her back, and she can't stand or walk for very long without serious pain, so we have a disabled badge to park closer to the shop entrances. Now, as I'm getting out of the car and walking around to the boot or the trunk of the car so that I can grab some bags, a woman who is the entitled Karen of this story starts screaming at me, saying that we can't park there. She looks at us and says, "Excuse me." When she says this, I turn around and I'm making a confused face because I literally don't know what's happening right now. She says to me, "You just took my parking spot." Now, this is absolutely not true, as she was behind us when we pulled in. I responded by saying, well, I wasn't driving, so I'm sorry, I guess. This entitled Karen then says, "This spot is for disabled people and parents with children. You need to move now. I have children in the back." I looked at her and I said, "I have a disability badge in the car. We are allowed to be here." This Karen looks at me up and down and says, "You don't look disabled in the slightest. These are only for disabled people." Now, before I could begin to explain my mom's situation, she cuts me off and starts shouting, "People like you disgust me. You think you're entitled to park anywhere you want. You need to move your stupid car right now before I call the police." At this point, she's out of the car and she's getting very close to me, shouting in my face. Up until now, my mom was waiting in the car for me to grab her a trolley to lean on while we shop. However, when she heard the shouting, she came out of the car. My mother then started shouting, "Hey, that is a child. Why are you getting in her face?" Now, my mom used to work in a bar, so she can be very scary when she wants to be. The entitled Karen then started screaming at my mom, "You can't park here. This is for disabled people and parents only, you stupid idiot. I have 2 kids that are hungry. I need this spot." My mom responds by explaining she has a medical condition and that she's allowed to park here and that it's all none of her business. She then goes over and grabs the badge and shows it to this woman. Now, this entitled Karen was shouting at my mom as she was walking away, "Women like you feel like you could do anything that they want. You're absolutely vile." And when the Karen said this, I think she was referring to my mother's appearance and the brand new car. My mom is very pretty for context here, and she probably assumed that we were very well off, but we definitely are not. Now, I've walked away at this point, and a few more words were exchanged while my mother flashed her badge that I didn't fully hear. She gives us a dirty look and calls my mother a lady of the night, if you know what I mean. And this Karen is doing this as she's driving off to park somewhere else. So we go into the shop and carry on about our day. Well, a boy around my age, who is presumably the entitled Karen's son, comes up to me and my mother while we're shopping and is is profusely apologizing for what happened, but we tell him it's not his fault and just walk away. We're in the shop for about 40 minutes, and it's then that we come out to see the passenger side door of our car has 3 huge scratch marks down the side of it. This Karen actually keyed our car because we parked where we were allowed to. Well, we straight away connect the dots, and my mother goes inside to speak to the security team while I phone the non-emergency police line to report it. Fast forward a few days, and we get word from the police that they identified the woman who did it from a security feed that literally showed her doing it and her license plate number on the feed of the argument between her and the 2 of us. Like seriously, how stupid was she to do it in broad daylight, literally in front of a busy shop? According to the police's information, she denied everything and is persistent in saying we did it ourselves to frame her. We are currently awaiting a court date for vandalism and the insurance payout to get the car fixed. We have the security footage of her scratching up the car as evidence, so I think we'll be fine in terms of the insurance and the courtroom. But regardless, I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction. Wow, you've got to be a special kind of stupid to key somebody's car, all because they park somewhere they're absolutely allowed to park in. Like seriously, what was this lady thinking? Like not only does she come about this the wrong way by screaming at these people, but to actually vandalize someone else's expensive property, namely their car door, all because you didn't get what you want? Like that is insane in my opinion, and there's no good excuse for this. So hopefully the court case and all this other baggage just gets taken care of, because this entitled Karen absolutely deserves to get in trouble. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job is incredibly picky and likes to micromanage you in every aspect of your job. And after getting written up for several small minor infractions, I am now at my breaking point and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a server and I feel like the micromanaging of my managers is a bit out of control. I don't solely blame them because it's the overall culture of where I work, or perhaps I'm just too sloppy. So honestly, if I do fit the bill, please let me know what you think. At the place I work, if you leave any kind of mess, no matter how small it is, someone will be bringing it up. For example, I had to open a bag of Parmesan cheese the other day, and I set the scissors down on the counter about 3 feet from where they belong, and I just forgot to put them back. About 4 minutes later, my manager comes over and says, "Hey, did you use these scissors? Why didn't you put them back?" They will literally ask who left these out to coworkers, then ask you why you didn't put whatever it is away. Now, maybe I'm a bit too relaxed, but if I see a simple, harmless mistake, I just chalk it up to someone being busy and that they made a human mistake. And if you just give them a few minutes, they'll probably correct it. So don't immediately jump on their case, because either way, I will just grab the scissors and put them away myself. Well, last night, I was waiting on a 20 top, and at the end of the night, I admittedly screwed up and forgot to do part of my side work. I left out a bowl of cheese, some oil and vinegar, and a pitcher of water at my side station. And guess what? When I got to work today, I was written up for it. They said that I regularly make messes and I don't clean them up, and I fully admit that it was my fault, but am I being too sensitive and thinking that this is kind of a petty write-up? I think I'm especially feeling butthurt about this because I step up in other ways that no one else does, and I get no validation for it. For example, I will regularly get a broom and dustpan and try to sweep things up, and I'll pull things out of the shelves and I'll clean them up. I'll even spray down my chairs with disinfectant. I also came from a background of way more teamwork, so if I see another server's table need something, I will literally just get it myself. I'll fill the water up, I'll pull plates, etc. But the thing is, the other servers rarely do this. It's like they have a very strict set of things that they will do, and if you expect them to bail you out in any way outside of that, you are literally on your own. And I've never seen another server do these things that I try to do. I'm not even saying that I'm all that great. I'm just not used to a restaurant where they're watching everything you do like a hawk, but they're only looking out for the bad things that you do. I never hear a word of praise, but the moment I leave scissors out or leave some cheese out, they will write me up saying that I make too many messes and I don't pull my weight. The difference is I'm a bit absent-minded, and in the moment I'll forget small things. So it's this kind of micromanaging that just ruins my will to go above and beyond in any kind of way. So am I wrong in this situation? What should I do? Okay, as someone who has worked in a situation like this, where I had everybody micromanaging everybody else, I can say confidently that the only way to survive this kind of working environment is to literally only look out for yourself. The management and your coworkers are stuck in this weird toxic cycle where if anybody makes a mistake, they're gonna report each other, which basically forces them to only think about themselves and not help out anybody else. And this, in my opinion, is a super toxic work environment, and you can absolutely do better than this. Like, I'm surprised you even even work there still because this sounds awful. Because here you are trying to help out your other coworkers, but you're never getting that same kind of treatment in return. Like you literally go out of your way to help them out and fill up their pitchers of water and pull plates off of their table, and yet they will never do the same thing for you. So no, this kind of micromanagement is not only not normal, but also it's indicative of being an awful work environment. And in my opinion, you can find a much better job than what these people are offering. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my friends in a restaurant, as they've basically labeled me as the rich friend of the friend group? Because right now I am frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I have an amazing group of friends from university. There's 7 people in total, and we met in our second year and have been super close ever since. For context, we go to a relatively expensive college with no scholarship, so it's safe to assume all of us are somewhat well off. When we were first getting to know each other, we often went out for brunch and drinks and split the bill most of the time. However, I've been brought up to never let others pay and would offer to cover the bill whenever I could. No one else offered to cover, but I believe it's just not common where they're from. A few months ago, we were talking about our parents' occupations, and I told them about my family. A quick Google search of my name brings up my father's page. However, they never connected the dots regarding our relation. My father is well known in the real estate industry, and he makes quite a bit of money. But ever since then, I've been labeled as the rich friend in our group. Whenever we go shopping, I'm expected to buy expensive items for myself and Uber everywhere instead of using public transport. When I do shop cheaper, it becomes a spectacle. I also feel guilty whenever I pull out only my portion in cash, since I can tell it makes everyone else uncomfortable to then dig through their bags for their share. Therefore, I often just end up covering anyways. A few weeks ago, it was one of my friend's 21st birthday, and I told him I would pay for an activity as a birthday gift. We went out and we had a nice dinner as a group, and I didn't mind since I offered. What bothered me was when I turned 20 recently and was hoping my friends would take care of me for one day. I usually never have this expectation, but I was really let down, since I always seem to be the one treating everyone else even on my special day. My last straw was when we went on vacation recently in my home country, and they, as usual, made plans for a pub crawl night. I initially didn't intend on going since I had scheduled dinner with my parents later that night, but I did eventually cave, and I ended up only going for a few hours. During that time, I had maybe one drink, but I had not eaten all night. I decided to call it a night after 2 hours to go have dinner with my family. Before I was leaving, however, one of my friends asked if I could cover the tab before I left. I would have usually agreed, but this circumstance felt different since I had not eaten and I barely drank anything. I also didn't want to come in the first place. This time, it seemed like they were trying to use me to pay, even if it was unintentional. I simply said that I would, but I ended up leaving without paying. I then got a text later on from one of them saying, "I thought you said you would pay. How was your dinner?" Now, we just brushed over that instance quite easily, but their behavior from that night still bothers me. It seems like I've become the rich friend character that always pays for their friends. So I really need to know, how do I fix this without coming off as some kind of jerk? What should I do? Okay, for starters, I think you need to understand that it really is not customary for someone to pay for everybody's food all the time. Like, that is not a regular occurrence, and if anything, people typically really do split the bill. So from my perspective, it really seems like your friends were taking advantage of your kindness, and not in a way that would be like beneficial towards you in the slightest. I mean, the best evidence of that is them being like, "Hey, before you leave, you want to pay for our stuff?" Like, that's just super rude, and I don't blame you for walking out. I do think the better strategy would have been saying something like, "Oh, I don't want to do that this time, I'm sorry, but I can't do it," or even something like that. Something to say that no, you don't want to do it, and this is kind of crossing some kind of boundary. But I do understand why you reacted that way, and it does kind of make sense. But seriously, you being wealthy should not ensure that you automatically pay for everything. That is incredibly disrespectful, and that is not something that you should be expected to do every single time. So I think there's a lot of ways to go about doing this, but in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would make my opinion very well known to these people. Because if they really are as good of friends as you're saying, then they really should understand exactly where you're coming from. Today, I served probably the rudest customer I've ever dealt with in my life as a server, as he was rude, aggressive, and condescending literally from the get-go. And I now hope that this guy never comes back, because he was an absolute nightmare to deal with. Here's what happened. Okay, so this guy walks in with his family and he's already in a bad mood. He has the smuggest look on his face, which deepens with every teeny tiny perceived mistake from me. And this also happened when we had 50 people on the wait list and I was slammed. The host is supposed to both roll and drop off silverware, but there was none in the whole restaurant. And of course, this guy immediately complained loudly about not having any. So I had to drop everything I was doing and roll some in the back. He then rolled his eyes when I brought it back, as if if he didn't believe that it wasn't my fault that he didn't have silverware a second after he sat down. He then ordered prime rib and wanted it seared on the grill. He said, "You know what a grill is, right?" When I brought refills while waiting for their food, he was staring absolute daggers into me. And then my manager tells me that I didn't pre-bust their salad plates fast enough. Oh, and he tells me the kitchen didn't catch there wasn't any prime rib, and he didn't tell me until everyone else's food was done. So my manager told the guy that the plate got dropped and he blamed me for it. So when I finally dropped off his free $30 bone-in ribeye steak, he was so red in the face he didn't even speak to me. I even asked him how it tasted after a bite, but he still didn't acknowledge me. The second he was done, I walked over and grabbed his empty plate and asked if he was ready for the check. He said to me, could you get my son a box? And could you clear some of these plates? Geez, are you new? But here's the thing. There were literally 3 plates on this massive 6-top table. I originally didn't want to bother him since he clearly didn't want to be bothered earlier. So I was planning on grabbing the empty plates at the end, but clearly I can't do that either. Then, whilst trying to take all of their plates in my hands, I dropped a fork by his feet. He then pointed to it and looked up smugly as if to say, "See, you're a terrible server." Anyways, I sent my coworker who doesn't take any garbage to check them out, and I'm honestly at such a loss. I simply don't know all the words that I can use to describe how rude this man was. He was rude to everyone who interacted with him, and I honestly hope I never deal with him ever again. Oh yeah, that guy's a massive jerk. I know exactly the kind of person you're talking about, and it's literally someone who just comes in with a bad attitude, and they're almost ready to pick a fight with somebody. They want to find some kind of reason to complain because their life sucks. And unfortunately, you just happen to be the next person in line to catch his wrath. So honestly, having your coworker step in and try to take care of some of this order, in my opinion, was the best thing you could possibly do, because his attitude was completely unnecessary, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she isn't actually traumatized just because we forgot to invite her to a party that she wasn't even wanting to go to in the first place? Because right now I feel really guilty about the entire situation, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have 3 close friends in college, and for the sake of the story, we'll call them Grace, Matt, and Laura. Now, Laura really likes to use mental health terminology, and she explores a lot of labels from those therapist influencers online. She was told that she has an anxiety disorder and depression, but that's the only diagnosis she's been given so far. And recently, she's been exploring autism and ADHD. Matt wanted to propose to Grace, as they've been dating for a while. He's been planning the proposal for a couple of weeks, and while the proposal was very intimate between the two of them, I was also very involved in scheduling the after-proposal event at a restaurant. The specifics of that are irrelevant to the story, but it was lovely, and Grace and Matt seemed really happy. Laura told us that she didn't want to be involved in planning the proposal because it reminded her of her parents' divorce, and she said that she might come to the post-engagement party. Well, come the day of the engagement, and both Matt and I forgot to check in on Laura. I don't think it's Matt's fault at all, because he was occupied with far more important things, but I feel a bit guilty about not reminding her, so she ended up not coming to the party. The very next day, she starts posting online some dramatic things about how it was traumatizing to see how little her friends cared about her, and that she'll be updating her followers on her trauma therapy journey. She posts that she's now in a really dark place and she thinks she has PTSD. Now, for a bit of context, I am pretty sensitive to mentions of trauma and PTSD because I was diagnosed with PTSD by a psychologist in my last year of high school after something that happened in my first. I have felt a lot of guilt and shame around this because I spent a lot of time feeling that the thing that happened wasn't bad enough to count. I sometimes still get nightmares and flashbacks, but it's gotten better after therapy. I know that I have my own issues wrapped up regarding the word, and it bothers me a lot when people seem to throw the terms around without understanding their weight, but I also acknowledge that I can't stop the internet from doing its thing. I haven't told any of my college friends about this, so Laura doesn't know. At one point, she called me and started explaining how traumatized she is, and I finally just snapped at her. I said, "You are not traumatized. Stop being dramatic. You just got exactly what you asked for." Well, now I feel guilty because I feel like I was a little bit harsh, and she's posting online without naming me that one friend she thought she could rely on to support her is being awful towards her and doesn't understand how being traumatized works. However, I feel like honestly, Laura's just being dramatic about an event that's not about her. I called my mom to see what her opinion is, and she told me that I could have reminded Laura about the party, and while my point is not necessarily wrong, I could have been more sensitive. So now I'm not sure how wrong I am. What should I do? First of all, I want to say your mom is wrong because Laura is a grown adult. For context, these people are all 21 years old. Like, you should not have to remind your friend about any kind of party that she definitely knows about. So for your mom to be like, "Oh yeah, you should have reminded her," or for Laura to pretend like, "Oh my god, I'm so traumatized traumatized. My friends don't care about me. Like, that is really stupid, and it has no legitimacy in my opinion. Because if anything, it shows how selfish Laura really is. She literally wants to make this engagement all about her. I mean, she didn't even want to show up to any of this and was like wishy-washy the entire time. Like, why should you be responsible for her emotional state? Like, that doesn't seem logical at all in my opinion. And I am right there with the original poster. I cannot stand when people try to make up that they have trauma of some kind, when in reality, what they're feeling are just normal feelings. Just because someone didn't remind you to go to a party that you weren't even sure you wanted to go to, doesn't mean that suddenly, oh wow, you have so much trauma, you now have PTSD. Like, no, that is not how this works, and Laura is a moron for thinking that. So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong, because it really looks like Laura was just trying to create some drama. An entitled jerk tries to get a device fixed that would break federal laws by changing traffic lights whenever he wanted. But as soon as I called him out online, this guy ghosted me and then deleted his post. Here's what happened. So when I was scrolling through the Nextdoor app a few months ago to see what the boogeyman of the day was to these old entitled people, I came across a post asking for help from an electronics repair person with a few pictures of a disassembled electronic device and a circuit board. The poster explained he needed someone to help replace the strobe light bulb on this device and that he had asked some local shops but nobody could help him. I looked at the pictures and it seemed kind of familiar, but I wasn't 100% sure what the device was. A few others replied asking what the device was itself and that they might be able to help, but the original poster replied by only saying that it was a strobe light that flashes at 14 hertz. And that's when I thought to myself, bingo. In the totally useless knowledge part of my brain, I happen to know that traffic signal preemption devices used by police and fire trucks to change signals to green while they're en route to an emergency are strobe lights that flash at 14 hertz. And the Federal Signal Opticom is one device that looked exactly like his teardown pictures. I also happen to know that it is illegal in our state for any random person to possess one of these transmitters, and that it's against federal law for anyone to interfere with interstate commerce by changing the traffic signal at an intersection using one of these things. So I replied to him without asking what the device even was, and I cited the California Vehicle Code and the federal codes, fines, and jail sentences for using a strobe light to give himself a green light, and the enhancements if someone was injured or worse in a car accident that he caused. I then closed out, questioning if it really was worth the risk of using the light just to get to the grocery store a few minutes faster, while putting us other drivers and emergency services at risk. I then went back to check for a reply the next morning, and sadly the post had vanished into thin air. Someone must not have liked being called out on the links he was willing to go to, just to try and get what he wants regardless of the consequences. Wow, that's really funny because this is obviously exactly what this was about. This guy clearly had some kind of tech that he definitely should not have had, and he was just trying to get it fixed so that he could work the system. Like, why else would he delete his posts and go dark? Like, that is so sketchy it's not even funny. So seriously, good for the original poster for calling this guy out, because if this guy got his way, he could have seriously injured somebody. An entitled jerk blocks my car in the parking lot with his moving truck and smugly declares that I need to shut up and deal with it. So I decided to get some revenge by taking his keys and throwing them into the woods. And despite the fact that he tried to call the cops on me, he not only didn't have any evidence of my interference, but also ended up owing me thousands of dollars after he vandalized my car. Here's what happened. So I lived in a high-rise apartment building, and my truck wouldn't fit in the underground parkade. It didn't have a lift kit, but it was a 2500 heavy-duty with slightly larger tires, and it did have a headache rack that stuck above the cab a few inches. The apartment had a very limited number of outdoor stalls at the rear of the building, one of which I was assigned. One Saturday afternoon, I was going out with some buds from work, and when I exited the building, there was a 53-foot trailer backed up to the building with 4 guys moving furniture in. The truck was kind of jackknifed in, and the trailer was less than a foot from my front bumper. My truck was also backed in with another vehicle behind it, so literally I was trapped. I asked the first guy I saw if they could move the truck, and he said I had to ask his boss. So I asked which one that was, and then waited for the described person. After waiting 15 minutes, I asked a different guy where the boss was, and I was told he was upstairs supervising. So I went in search of the guy, and I asked him to please move his truck so I can get out. Now, truth be told, he only needed to straighten up his backup job, and I could have snuck by, but he just flat out refused and frankly was quite rude about it. He told me, "Well, that's some tough cookies. You can get lost and wait." So I went back downstairs to do just that, and as I was sitting in my truck smoking and listening to tunes, I noticed there was a padlock hanging off the side door of the trailer, and there was a simple huge ring of keys stuck in it. I waited until there were none of the movers around, and I decided to take the ring of keys, put put them inside my jacket, and then went and threw them into some bushes some distance away. Then I went back to my apartment and called my buddies to tell them that I wouldn't be joining them. Now fast forward to about 4 hours later, and the building manager called me about the keys missing because the movers were done and they wanted to leave. But I told him that I didn't know what he was talking about. He then asked to meet him in the back lot, which I happily did. This boss mover was all up in my face, saying that he knew I took his rings, and there were over 75 keys on it, including the truck key, and most were one of a kind. But it was right at this moment I decided I was going to get some revenge and show this guy exactly why he should have not messed with me. So when he started yelling at me, I decided that I was just gonna play dumb. The building management suggested that we look at the surveillance video, and at that point I was a little bit scared. I didn't realize there were cameras back there, but I just played it cool. We all eventually went to the office and we watched the footage, but the cockeyed way he parked the trailer blocked most of the camera's field of view. Now you could see me get out of the truck and walk towards the trailer, but you couldn't see me actually touch the keys and then walk back beside my truck, exiting the video near the back of the vehicle. But there was literally nothing in my hands, so the footage proved nothing. Well, the boss man called the cops, but they too watched the footage. They asked me if I had the keys, which I didn't, so I said no. They then said that there was nothing further to be done. I then asked if we were done and when I was going to be able to drive my truck. I was then told to rent a car and submit my receipts, which I happily did. The truck moved the next day, but the trailer was left, perhaps out of spite, at the same angle, blocking me in all the way until Wednesday. When I was finally able to move my truck, I noted the side was scraped up and the driver's mirror was hanging down. We went back to the videotape and I clearly saw the boss man walking back and forth beside my truck, all before taking the mirror in both hands and breaking it off. So in that moment, it was now my turn to call the cops. The moving company ended up paying my car rental tab, which was $375, plus they had to pay $5,500 worth of bodywork, as well as paint, decals, and a new mirror. And I also hope it cost a bundle to replace all those keys. I lived there for 2 more years after that, and I would check on the key ring from time to time, because they were still there the day that I moved out. Okay, I don't care who you are, this is some hilarious revenge. The boss man of this story had 2 options. Either move the truck just a little bit so this guy can move out of the parking lot, or he could be a jerk and be like, oh yeah, get lost, I'm gonna stay here and you can't make me move. Like seriously, this would have taken like no time to like back up and straighten out so that you can get your car out of the way. But instead, this guy wanted to be a jerk and make your life a living nightmare. So I just love the fact that you returned the favor and decided to hide those keys. Like, I'm not a fan of inconveniencing people in any kind of way, and I definitely don't think this is a good idea if you find yourself in this situation, but seriously, this boss absolutely deserved to get put in his place. And the delicious sweet karma of him getting the cops called on him after he gets caught on camera vandalizing this guy's car, in my opinion, makes all of it completely worth it, because this idiot boss absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-sister-in-law that I will not take care of my deceased ex-husband's daughter, who I have absolutely no relation to? Here's what happened. For starters, my ex destroyed my life 7 years ago. He was cheating on me with multiple women and allowed one woman in question to steal from us, which set not only him but me back because it was a substantial amount she got her hands on. And to this day, the woman is unknown because she gave fake details. Well, we divorced as a result, and one of his affair partners during the divorce admitted that she was pregnant. From what I now know, the baby was conceived after I filed for divorce, but the mother was someone in his life while we were married. My ex and I share 2 children. Our son is 11 years old and our daughter is 10. And he passed away suddenly about 8 months ago. And he was the sole parent of his daughter, who is 6 currently. Her mother did not want to be in her life, and her mother's family were also not in her life. Well, after my ex passed away, his daughter was taken into foster care, and she has remained there. I was contacted earlier in the process and asked if I would foster her and raise her with my children, but I said no, and I thought that would be the end of it. Well, my ex's sister got in touch with me a month ago, and this is the first time in years that we've communicated. Even at my ex's funeral, no words were exchanged. And yes, we absolutely have bad blood. She expected me to stay with her brother for our children, despite knowing that he was sleeping around, and I just didn't like that. She felt like I ruined my ex's life by leaving, and she told me as much. He gave me an STI that I didn't know I had until I went to get checked out after finding out about his affairs. My ex's sister told me her niece deserves a parent. She deserved a family, and that I should keep her with her siblings, and she told me to cut the BS, that she knows the reason my kids call her a half-sibling sibling is because of me, and I can undo all the bad that I did and make things work for all 3 kids and have a happy home. She repeated over and over again that she felt her niece deserved this and how she's on foster family 5 already and no family have come forward to take her. Well, I just ignored her and I ended the call without saying anything else. But she didn't give up and called me again a week ago. And she did this from a new number because I blocked her old one. And she was just repeating the same old crap. I told her she can give her niece a parent if she wants, but it won't ever be me. I told her she should want better for her niece than someone who could never love her or even want her. Well, when I said that, this caused a hysterical reaction. She told me I'm a heartless jerk who feels okay separating siblings. So seriously, am I in the wrong or am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It's really convenient that your ex-sister-in-law is like, come on, take the kid into your home, but she herself is not willing to do the same. Like, what is going on right now? It seems like nobody wants to be responsible for this kid, but everyone wants you to take care of it in some kind of way. What, because you're a responsible mom and you already have kids? Like, she didn't have to be in foster care. Someone in the family could have stepped up and said, yes, I will take care of her. But literally none of them did, and instead they want to be like, oh, well, you should do it. You don't want to split up family, do you? But like, are you kidding me right now? The original poster's ex literally did that, what, 7 years ago? When they went around behind the original poster's back and cheated on them? Like, their thinking is so backwards, it's not even funny. So honestly, I don't blame you for staying out of this and choosing to just focus on your kids. Because in my opinion, this has everything to do with your ex's sister and their inability to take care of a kid in need. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my brother after his wife told everybody about me winning the lottery? Here's what happened. So a few years ago, I won a lottery and I became set for many lives over. Even though my name and winnings were public records, I worked hard to keep it a secret, and for the most part, it kind of worked. After verifying my winnings and setting up a trust, I finally told my family. My plan was to basically help each of my 3 brothers and my parents depending on their needs. My brother, who I will call Chris, and his wife, who I will call Alice, had 3 kids of their own, and I offered to pay for a down payment on a house that they wanted. Now, as crazy as it sounds, I was more broke the first year of winning than the year before I won because I was helping my family out. I had one rule for anybody who took money from me: don't tell anybody about my money. Well, Chris and Alice did for clout, and that unleashed a lot of people bombarding me with money requests. These were friends of theirs, friends of theirs, in-laws, and a lot of other people. For example, my brother's brother-in-law asked me to pay for a wedding in St. Lucia because his fiance wanted one, and I met the guy maybe twice in 9 years. Even though this happened back in 2021, people still bother me constantly for money. I was so mad, and I ended up cutting my brother off. This led to a rift in the family, and I largely became estranged from them. It was unfortunate because I was very close to my nephews and I wanted to spoil them. Well, last week, my other brother emailed me and said that Chris has been sick all year, and he is bedridden and gets specialized care. And this has something to do with breathing problems, and I just said, well, that's sad. He said that Chris and Alice were going to lose the house because Chris had not been working. They have 4 kids from ages 4 to 15 years old, and I told him if he had something to say, then go ahead and say it. He then asked me if I would help them out by paying their outstanding bills and until they can get back on their feet. But you know what? I said no. The money isn't the issue. It's the privacy. I have no idea if they will keep their mouths shut about my helping them. I get painted as a nice rich guy, and then I have 10 people bothering me with their problems. You help them once and they'll just keep on coming back. It's funny how people just happen to have financial emergencies when you're helping others out. The other problem is that if my brother does pass away, then I don't want Alice getting a house that I paid 20% of. She and I don't get along, and she's the one who put my business out there. She was so certain that I would take care of them that she didn't even bother to say thanks for the down payment on our dream house. Now, their financial situation is very bad. I'd offer to help in other ways, but beggars want to be choosers and negotiate their charity. And before anyone might ask this, I am not setting up some sort of loan settlement with my brother and his wife. They don't have the means to pay me back, and they would just see it as a sign of weakness. Ironically, the only other people who was against giving the money is my financial advisor. So I'm really sorry that I gave them $420,000 to buy a house, and they somehow managed to mess it all up. I mean, they live in a nicer house than I do. I don't live fancy. I don't own a Rolex, and my clothes have holes in them. I bought my furniture from Big Lots, for crying out loud. My other reason for not helping is that I know for a fact that his wife wouldn't help me if the roles were reversed, and I know that she would be much less nice about it. I love my nephews, but I will not be blackmailed over them. When they come of age and reach out to me, then I'll be there for them. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. They burned down that bridge between between you and them a long time ago when they tried to go around and brag about your wealth. Like all they had to do was keep their mouths shut and everybody would have been fine. But instead, they want to go around and be like, oh yeah, my family member is really rich. They gave us all this money for this new home. And then fast forward, what, 3-4 years later, and you're still dealing with people asking you for money. Like that is seriously obnoxious. And I don't blame you in the slightest for like not wanting anything to do with people begging for money. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing. I wouldn't pay a single dime towards anything they're doing because that privacy is something you can never get out. That cat is out of the bag and you are not getting it back in. And the fact that you can no longer be private about your financial endeavors, in my opinion, is more than enough reason to turn them away and move on with your life. Am I the jerk for the way I reacted when my parents surprised my 16-year-old sister with a new car, but only bought me a $25 gift card and a book for mine 2 weeks later? Because right now, my parents are calling me a jerk as well as ungrateful for not being thankful that my sister's cancer is finally gone. But despite my frustrations, I'm left feeling very confused because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister was diagnosed with cancer last year. It has been hard on our family and even harder on her. I love my sister and I tried to be there for her as best as I could. I also did everything I could to make things easier for my parents. I took over the chores, I cooked every day, I cleaned the house, I did laundry and took care of my younger sibling, and I babysat them more. Luckily, she is doing really well and has recently finished her treatment, which is great, and we are all super grateful. Our birthdays are 2 weeks apart, and hers was 2 weeks ago. Well, my parents bought her a brand new car to celebrate after everything she went through, which I understand she does deserve it, but I was a bit surprised because I didn't even think they had any money. My dad has been unwilling to help me get a used car since last year, telling me that they don't have that kind of money at the moment, and I didn't even want him to pay for all of it. I've been saving up and I just wanted them to help me with the rest, but he kept telling me that they have no money for that. Well, my birthday just rolled around, and my parents bought me a book that I mentioned in passing and a $25 takeout gift card to a place I like. Now, I thanked them for it, but they saw that I was not too thrilled, and then they asked me what was wrong. I told them that while I do appreciate the gifts, I thought they were going to finally help me with the remaining $800 for buying the used car, seeing that they could now afford a new car for my sister. But when I said that, that's when they accused me of being jealous of my sister, who had just gone through something very traumatic, and that I was trying to make everything about me, and why couldn't I just be happy for her? They said that at the end of the day, I have a job and I could just continue saving. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think what your parents did is completely inappropriate, and it seems like they're definitely playing favorites. Don't get me wrong, your sister had cancer and she's now better. And yes, sure, give her the car, like that's totally fine. But for you to get a birthday gift that is literally a book and $25 for a gift card, like that would make me go crazy. And it sounds like we're only talking about what, $800? Like they can spend what, thousands of dollars on a car, but they can't cough up $800 to try and have this somewhat equal in some kind of way. Like the level of unfairness that's going on right now, especially compared to like her and her sister, in my opinion, is off the charts. By the way, in case you don't know, new cars nowadays, like brand new cars, they are not cheap. So not only did they have that kind of money lying around that they could use on their sister, but they also lied to the original poster over and over again. And here's the part that really drives me crazy, just personally. It really seems like the parents are just trying to like gaslight the original poster and be like, oh wow, you're so jealous of your sister. But I think they're completely missing the point. This is not about jealousy. This is all about feeling completely undervalued. Like, do they seriously not see the difference in what people are getting for their birthday? Like here we have your sister getting a brand new car and you're getting something that maybe a cousin would gift you for your birthday. Like that just seems really weird to me. And you know what? The original poster has earned their keep. They stepped up. They took care of the household. They literally babysat and did all the chores. They did the dishes and laundry. They did all these things to like take the pressure off of their parents and their sister. And sure, nobody's entitled to anything, but I think at least pitching in what, $800 to help get this used car would have been at least the bare minimum of what they could have done to show that they were appreciative of the original poster. Because right now it seems like it's some kind of like secondhand gift where they're like, yeah, okay, it's your birthday, here's a book and a gift card, get out of here. Like that is super unfair. Like that would really upset me as well. So to the original poster, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you have every right to be upset and be like, wait a second, this isn't fair. Because if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be very annoyed. I got into an argument with my husband after he left me during my surgery, and I'm honestly still so upset with him that right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my husband and I have been together for 4 years, and we do not have any kids. I had a same-day lumpectomy surgery surgery yesterday, and the tumor is not believed to be malignant, but regardless, I wanted it out since my mother had breast cancer. My husband got the day off work and drove me to the surgery. The surgery was delayed for about 3 hours, and my husband was getting impatient. The surgeon finally came in and said that she expected the surgery would take about an hour. After she left, my husband said to me that he was going to leave the hospital to get lunch when I went under, since he had not eaten that day. Now, I wanted him to be able to eat, and I was trying to be brave, but I really didn't want to be left when the surgery was only supposed to be an hour, so I asked if we could pick some food up on the way home. Well, he gave me the impression that he would stay, and I was wheeled away to surgery. Fast forward to about 30 minutes later, and I was being shaken awake by a nurse who told me that I was sick and she was trying to get in touch with my husband. Apparently, during the surgery, my blood pressure dropped rapidly, and my surgeon was able to get the tumor out in about 20 minutes. My blood pressure was 70/30 by the time they got it out, and my lips had turned blue. Now, I was very sick in my room. I was bleeding through my internal stitches, and I was coming in and out of consciousness, and I was even vomiting. But all the while, my nurse was trying to track my husband down. Even my surgeon called him up, but he did not answer. But I am very thankful for the sweet nurses who took care of me and reassured me. It is the next day now, and I'm very emotional and angry about the entire ordeal. Well, my husband did not apologize and has been incredibly defensive about the entire thing. His explanation for leaving was that he went out to get lunch, and then he was getting gas because he was low for driving me around. He then started complaining that the surgery was supposed to be an hour. He then said to me, "How was I supposed to know your heart could have stopped?" I told him he had one job, which was to stay with me and tell me what the surgeon says. Now, I could get over him leaving if he was apologetic or even remorseful in the slightest, but I am completely shocked at his words and how little he seems to care for someone he claims to love. In his defense, he cared for me last night when we got home, but left today after we argued. I'm sure I'm just still really emotional from anesthesia, and maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, but I can't even look at him the same. He is usually attentive and caring, so I'm just completely baffled. I'm sure he thought the chances of anything going wrong were slim to none, but I can't understand his thought process. I sat for hours and hours in waiting rooms during all of my mother's breast cancer procedures, and I was nervous to even leave for a minute to get any food. God forbid I don't have cancer, because I don't trust him with anything medical now. Honestly, I'm very unsure of what I'm hoping to get from writing this to strangers, but I really just needed to vent because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I want to say I am so sorry that that happened to you. Surgery is already like super stressful as it is, so the fact that he was so flippant and just so dismissive of that is incredibly disrespectful and so unfair for you. Like, this is already such a sensitive situation that your family has gone through. This is so closely related to what your mom went through, and you're just trying to be proactive about everything and prevent anything bad happening to you in the way that it happened to your mom. So that fact alone of him not understanding that, or even trying to understand that while also being defensive, in my opinion, is so uncalled for. And here's the thing, the surgeon probably said, "Oh yeah, it's probably gonna take an hour," but I'm willing to guess that those are probably like ballpark estimates where like, okay, maybe it'll be done in an hour, or maybe it's done a lot sooner like what happened in this story. Regardless, he's your ride home. He should have been there with you and right by your bedside when you woke up. And I think the original poster has it right because I feel the exact same way. If he was at least apologetic or like, I don't know, not defensive in the way he was, this all could have been fixed like right away. Like all he had to say was, "I'm so sorry for leaving, I thought it would take longer," or something to that extent. But instead he's like, "Oh yeah, I had to get gas because I was driving you around all over the place. How was I supposed to know your heart could have given out?" Like, buddy, this is your wife you're talking about. This is the person you decided to spend the rest of your life with. At least pretend like you want to be with her, because right now it's not very convincing that you even care. So truly, I'm so sorry you went through this, and I'm so sorry that your husband is a massive jerk, because the way he treated you, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My toxic boss treats me and my coworkers like absolute garbage, ruling with an iron fist and always saying he's gonna fire us if we do even the smallest thing wrong. So I decided to get some revenge by exposing the fact that he owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to various financial institutions that he was clearly trying to avoid. And I've honestly never been happier to see somebody get fired in my life. Here's what happened. To start things out, mobile phones became common in my country at around 2004, just as I finished high school. And my parents bought me my first phone, which was a second-hand Nokia. It was bulky and basic, but I promised myself that someday I'd buy a new phone with my own money. When college started, I had a 2-hour daily commute. In high school, I excelled academically and won several district-level awards. These awards were being distributed during my first year of of college, and one nationalized bank award finally gave me enough money for a new phone. So I bought a Sony Ericsson K300i, and I also got a premium SIM card, not realizing that it had been abandoned by its previous owner. By the third day, I started receiving calls from a guy who we will call Brandon from various financial institutions. It turned out the number previously belonged to him, and for 20 years I've been getting these calls. Determined to get my premium number, I began a routine of blocking wrong numbers. Back then, blocking was device specific, so each time I got a new phone, I had to start over and keep a list of numbers that I wanted to block. Fast forward and I got my first job after graduating in 2009. Around 2010, I was assigned to a new project with a notorious reputation for burning people out due to a nefarious project manager named Bran. I didn't know his full name for quite a while, but he took pride in making our lives a living nightmare. Bran ruled with an iron fist. From the moment his team stepped into the office, they were met with a barrage of emails and messages, each more important than the last. Bran thrived on creating chaos, often changing project deadlines on a whim, demanding his team work late into the night and through the weekends. Bran's presence loomed over every task. He insisted on micromanaging every single detail, and yet he was quick to take credit for any success, no matter how small it might be. But failures were met with his notorious tirades, publicly berating his team and assigning blame without hesitation. His unpredictable temper kept everybody on edge, afraid to make the slightest mistake. Meetings were another tool in his arsenal for torment. He scheduled them during lunch breaks and after hours, ensuring that no one could escape his grasp. These meetings were often pointless, serving only to reinforce his dominance and disrupt any semblance of work-life balance his team might have had. His relentless stream of emails continued around the clock, each carrying a thinly veiled threat: either be perfect or get dismissed. Under his reign, morale plummeted and burnout soared, yet Brand remained oblivious, satisfied only by his complete and total control. I was quite ashamed when I learned that he was from the same area that I was, and had gone to the same school even though it was years before me. In 2012, our company merged with a parent company. Almost nothing changed personnel-wise, but infrastructure-wise, we got Microsoft Outlook as well as an organization view. And that's when I first learned about Brand from an organizational hierarchy perspective. His full name was an absolute eye-opener. It was Brandon. Now, the name was common enough, but at the time, mobile numbers had an area-specific pattern, so I already knew that the previous owner of my number was from the same area as me. But still, it could be somebody else, so I needed to dig deeper. I talked with an old mentor who lived in the same area and had coached several high school students for the last 2 decades, and he confirmed my suspicions. I won't go into the details, but it was evidence that Brandon and Brand were the same person. I had been quite pissed off with this unknown person named Brandon for almost a decade by then, and Brand had been the bane of mine and my coworkers' existence for quite some time. So this is where my revenge takes place. First, I unblock all the numbers in my phone, as I was getting maybe 5 to 6 calls on a daily average, but after unblocking about 150 numbers, it suddenly increased to 15 to 18 people. And in that moment, my answering strategy changed drastically. Instead of saying, "Oh, this is the wrong number," I politely explained that the owner had changed his number and then provided his current number to update their database. And this is where I might be a jerk, because I also volunteered his manager's number, just in case he tries something else. Well, the fallout to my decision was epic. Apparently, these people had been trying to find him for almost a decade. Several banks had sold his debts to companies that literally bother people for a living to get their money back. And it turned out he had been taking loans in everybody else's names, namely his wife, his parents, his uncles, his aunts, and he was giving everyone that same number. He was evading credit card debt and loans of upwards $200,000. And apparently he had almost 20 cases filed against him, but nobody could ever find him, which is probably why he thought he could walk on water. There are multiple versions of what happened at the office when his manager started to get calls about him, but as a result, he was let go about 2 months later, and I'm so happy to say that I never heard from him ever again. This is one of those situations where yes, revenge is oh so very sweet. This guy made your life a living nightmare in this office. He ruled with an iron fist, and he basically made everybody afraid that they were going to lose their job at the drop of a hat. Like seriously, that is so annoying, and I can't stand managers that act that way. But the really funny part here for me is that you had this guy's old number. You had the number that he used to try and get by on these stupid loans he was never going to pay back. Never mind the fact that he was opening loans in other people's names just so he could try to get some extra money for God knows what. Like, that is so unethical and so toxic, it's not even funny. So good for you for taking this scumbag down, because from the sounds of it, this guy absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister-in-law is constantly putting her needs above everybody else's, as her entitlement has reached a breaking point in my mind that at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my family had their annual dinner tonight. The youngest sister is an alcoholic, like straight up, so she doesn't have a car and always needs a ride. Last year, the eldest sister was her chauffeur and didn't get to visit with the family as long as she wanted to because her baby sister was whining that she wanted to go home. But this year, my husband said that he'll chauffeur his baby sister. We are all aging, and last year the eldest brother passed away, so you would think that the baby sister could deal with a few hours of family, but no, apparently that's just not possible. The second she's done eating, she's ready to leave. I said to her, "You know you can't bully him into leaving like you do." So he told her to relax and let him finish eating. The next thing I know, she's asking the widow of the eldest brother to help her in the bathroom. And in that moment, I knew I should have followed, and I wish I had, because the alcoholic convinced the widow to let her use her phone. She then called a member of her church to come and give her a ride home. However, before that good Christian showed up, my husband was ready to leave. We're driving home when the eldest sister calls me to find out if she's with us, and that's when I find out the person from church is at the restaurant to pick her up. My husband then asked her, "Wait, what is going on?" But of course, we get no answer. I then asked her why she would do that, and she actually tells me it's none of my business. I said, "If you called someone from the church for a ride, why are you in our vehicle?" Well, she just says, "I want to go home. I'm not talking to you." So I said, "Good, then hear this. You are obnoxious in your entitlement, and I'm tired of you acting like a baby. You say things like, 'Be my chauffeur, pay for my food, buy me drinks, let me finish your beer.' And that's because if you don't get your way, you will just figure out who to manipulate next." Now, at about that time, we exit the interstate, and on the side of the road, there's a homeless woman yelling crazy. I then looked at my sister-in-law and said, "Look, there's your future." But I'm honestly still annoyed by my sister-in-law's attitude, as well as her demands to always get what she wants. Wow, I'm really surprised that anybody would drive this lady around. Like, for starters, she's not even a responsible adult. Like, not only is she an alcoholic, so she doesn't have a car, but while also getting rides from other people, she acts like she's so entitled to all this time and attention, as if anybody else's needs are not as important as hers. Like, that really must be obnoxious, and I'm just blown away that anybody's giving her the time of day. Like, if I was her brother of some kind and she's like, "Ooh, drive me around," and then she started acting up like that at some kind of like family get-together, I would lose my mind and not take that for a second. I would tell her straight up, "You need to get an Uber because I am not taking care of you." And it's also so rude that she called somebody from church and said, "Hey, pick me up from the restaurant." And then when that person gets there, they're like, "Wait a second, where is she?" She literally just inconvenienced someone to come out to a restaurant that they didn't need to go to, all because she wanted to leave right away. "I want to leave right now." Like, that is absolutely obnoxious in my opinion, and I think the next time she wants to come for some kind of like annual get-together, she needs to find a ride from somebody else, because her awful behavior absolutely should not be rewarded. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that she should have tried to be a good mom if she wanted the rewards at her son's weddings? Because right now she is not happy with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother-in-law, who is my husband's younger brother, had my husband and I act as parents of the groom at his wedding. My sister-in-law and my sister and my husband's children rounded out the groom's side at his wedding. Now, my mother-in-law and her husband and the children that she shares with her husband were there in person, but they were not counted among the immediate family, and they were not seated with us at any point. For reference, my husband became the father figure to his brother when their father died. My husband was 10 and his brother was 2 years old. My mother-in-law was pregnant with my sister-in-law at the time, and my husband became the head of the household. My mother-in-law basically checked out, and she would get angry at my husband for not doing better. The day my husband lost his father, he also lost his mother. She was and continues to be so cold to him. She expected so much of a 10-year-old and criticized him heavily in the years that followed. He was supposed to get amazing grades, keep the house in order, raise his siblings, help his mom out whenever she wanted, work when he was old enough, and needing to do so without ever complaining or turning to her for help. Well, his grades suffered immediately because of all that he went through. Until my husband turned 18 years old, he did 99% of the raising of his younger siblings, but they bonded with him in a very special way because of this. And I was his friend and then girlfriend at the time, so I helped as well. So they also bonded really well with me too. When my husband was 16 years old, his mom announced that she was pregnant and moved in this guy that she married in Vegas. And nobody knew anything about this beforehand. At that point, her and my husband's relationship worsened. Between my brother-in-law and sister-in-law not being bonded with her at all, and her trying to take back some parenting but them rejecting her, and my husband not caring to include his half-sibling in the parenting parenting that he did, it all made for a very toxic mess. She wished that my husband wasn't alive. She wished that she never had him and did this all in front of me and his siblings. When he moved out, she did all that she could to stop the siblings seeing each other, but my brother-in-law and sister-in-law acted out until she gave in. They had a lot of extended sleepovers with us, and my husband did attempt to win custody of them when we settled enough, but my mother-in-law's household was financially secure, so he was denied. But it never changed the fact that my brother and sister-in-law wanted us, but mostly they wanted him. They wanted the brother and father that they knew best of all. My mother-in-law and her family were not at mine and my husband's wedding, but as mentioned, she was at my brother-in-law's wedding because he and his sister maintained some contact. In the 2 weeks since the wedding, I ran into the mother-in-law at the grocery store, and that's where she confronted me. She complained about how unrewarding the wedding was when she was treated like she's not my brother-in-law's mom, and then she said it was my husband's fault. So I told her that she should have tried to be a good mom if she wanted any kind of reward at her son's weddings. And then after I said that, I walked right away. Because my husband and I have her blocked everywhere, she can't reach out to me, but she has been giving my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law a hard time over what I said. And she has called me a pot stirrer, as if I'm trying to stir up drama. So am I the jerk in this situation for what I said to my mother-in-law? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mother-in-law sounds like a nightmare. She not only mistreated your husband, but also she practically checked out of being a parent. She pretty much forced her 10-year-old to raise his siblings all throughout their childhood. And then she brings in some guy that she married in Vegas and then tries to be like, okay, I'm gonna be a parent again. It's like, no, that is not gonna happen. This is too little too late. And the fact that she's so blind to that and in denial that yeah, she was an awful mother, that part alone is really upsetting in my opinion. Because she absolutely knows what she did. She knows that she practically abandoned her kids and forced her son to raise them in her stead. Like that's on her, that's on nobody else. So for her to be like, wow, you guys didn't deserve that. This is your husband's fault. Like that would have lit my hair on fire. I would be so mad if somebody said that about my spouse, especially considering what they went through in front of the person who caused it. So no, you are not the jerk. And honestly, I think your mother-in-law absolutely had this coming. An entitled Karen tries to block me from parking in a parking lot by standing in my way to try and flag her friend over. And even though I tried to explain that I'd been waiting over an hour for this parking spot, this entitled Karen refused to listen, claiming that she deserved this spot way more than I did. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened, and the lady who did this is sat at a table not even 5 feet away from me at the moment. So for context, I'm currently looking for work, and I spend about 4 to 5 hours on most days at my local art center. They have a really nice coffee shop and serve food, and they have free parking as well. Today, I pulled in around 10 o'clock in the morning, and they had no spaces left, so I waited for almost an hour. Parking is 2 single lanes on either side, and I am perpendicular to one of them, patiently waiting and trying not to fall asleep. Other cars come in looking for spaces, but they see that I'm waiting and then they leave. So almost an hour in, some people walk out and indicate that I am parked in front of their car. It's a nice lady with her baby and some friends, so I back up and I patiently wait for them to load up so that I can take the space. As I am watching, I see another lady slowly saunter up towards the space, looking around and nodding her head, but not paying any attention to me. She is just beyond the parking space, and once the car pulls out, she walks into the space and turns her back to me just as I am trying to pull in. I say to her, "Excuse me, miss," and I say this twice, but she just completely ignores me. So I try again, just a little bit louder, but I still stay polite. She then turns to look at me, and I ask her to please move as I'm trying to pull in. At this point, she looks surprised and says, "No, I'm keeping this space." I then explain to her that I've been patiently waiting for almost an hour for the first available space. And when I said that, she then shows her entitlement. She said to me, "You've just been parked there. You were not waiting for the space." I explained to her that I have indeed been waiting and that I moved back to let the lady with the baby load up. I then see her friend drive up with their car and I recognized it. They have driven in twice while I was waiting, also looking for parking spaces. I tell her that I've seen her car twice and that they were looking for spaces as well, and that you can't just block a space, especially after I've been waiting for almost an hour. Now, it's important to note that I didn't raise my voice and I wasn't rude, but I also was not about to give in. She then gave me a look of disgust and walked towards her friend who was asking her if we were okay. So I then just decided to park my car. They then drove off and I came in. I found a table and said hello to a friend who was at an adjacent table, and I went to order my coffee. Now, I was going to tell the barista what had happened to me, but then I realized that they were in queue next to me, so I came to the internet instead. But either way, I'm still blown away by her entitlement, as well as the fact that she seriously tried to block my parking space. Okay, I will never understand anybody trying to block a parking space with their physical body. Here's the thing, if you don't have a car and you're not in a car, then you cannot claim a parking space for a car. You can't just run out and be like, oh, I'm taking this spot, sorry. Like, that is obnoxious and that makes you a massive piece of garbage. And the thing is, this lady absolutely knew that you were waiting for a parking space. She knew that's why you were sitting off on the corner literally waiting for an hour. They even circled the parking lot twice. Like, they definitely knew you were there, so any kind of like attitude they might have about you pulling into that spot, in my opinion, is completely unwarranted. But seriously, good for you for not giving into this moron, because her entitlement was absolutely unacceptable. I'm tired of all the customers that I have to deal with on a daily basis, as I am constantly confronted with so many awful people who come into my restaurant. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I manage a fairly successful boardwalk beach restaurant on the East Coast, so naturally, this is our busy season. And I know the idea is that the more customers we have, the more likely problem customers are going to occur. I have been here for a few years, but my God, the customers we're getting this year is on a new level of unbelievable. For example, I got called racist because I wouldn't let an obviously underage person without an ID order a drink. Her friends just kept yelling that I'm racist over and over again, just to try and cause a scene. Eventually, the cops were called and I had them removed. Also, when it rains, it's an absolute nightmare. Everyone on the beach comes into our restaurant and just sits at the tables. Most of them don't order anything, and they just sit there waiting the rain out. And naturally, we get lots of people who actually want to sit and order, since they're here anyways and they might as well. On top of that, the people who requested to sit outside want to now come inside because they're now getting rained on. I get into arguments with people just sitting there because we need the tables for paying customers. Like, they just refuse to move. In fact, one time we had a family sit at the table, and one of them went out and brought back a pizza with drinks and started eating at our tables. Now, what was their explanation for this, you might be wondering? They claim this was a public space, so they're allowed to do this, and if I call the cops, then I'm breaking the law. And believe it or not, this is actually a very common occurrence. Now, it's also important to note that we don't allow public bathrooms, as those are only for paying customers. And the reason for this is that people from the beach will literally walk in and just trash the place. They'll drag sand into our restaurant, they'll mess up everything and get in the food, and just enter and basically destroy the toilet. And in most cases, they just clog it and then they leave. It's also a fairly small bathroom, which is typical of all the other restaurants that are trying to utilize space as much as we can. So, paying customers are stuck behind lines of non-paying customers waiting to use the bathroom. My favorite is when a non-paying customer comes up to me and says that the bathrooms are disgusting and that we should be ashamed of ourselves for allowing it to get like that. And this literally happens at least once a day. We try to keep up with it, but with how busy we get, sometimes I need bussers to bus tables or run food and not go over to check if the bathroom is clean after every single guest. There are huge public bathrooms 2 buildings down from us, and when we direct the non-paying customers there, they say they're already here and we're not allowed to deny someone to use the bathroom. Now, our state also has very strict open liquor laws. We cannot sell alcohol and allow a guest to bring it onto the boardwalk or the beach, and that's because we are the ones who would get in trouble for it. So, as you can probably guess, we had a guy who asked if he could bring his beer onto the boardwalk, but we just straight up told him no. We explained it's against the law and we point to the signs behind him that clearly say no alcohol beyond this point. He just says, oh, that's BS, you should have told me that before. But after we turn our backs, he just sneaks out of the restaurant. Eventually, the cops come back and they say that this guy, and yes, they described him perfectly, even down to what he was wearing, had told them that we had said he is allowed to bring drinks outside and that we had lied to him. We then pointed out the signs again to the cops and then said, yeah, that's what I thought, he just didn't want to pay the fine. I've also had customers bring his parking ticket in and hand it to me and told me that I have to pay it. He said that he was coming to my restaurant and that he didn't know that he had to pay for parking. But seriously, how is that my fault? Well, I just laughed and handed it back to him, which is probably not my most professional moment, and then he just started screaming and crying, demanding to speak to a manager. There are so many more instances besides this one, but honestly, sometimes customers can be the worst because they literally just don't care about anybody but themselves. Okay, just when I thought I've had some bad customer interactions, I then read this and I'm like, wow, you've had it way worse than me. I can't imagine working in one of those high traffic areas where this is like a tourist trap like the beach or an amusement park, because it seems to me it's just full full of people who are super entitled, who also basically believe that they can get away with anything that they want. And this post is just a few glimpses into that. So truly, I'm sorry you have to deal with such awful customers, and hopefully your job gets better in the long run. An entitled neighbor causes over $100,000 worth of damage to my niece's house, leaving my niece's home practically in ruins. And at this point, we seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. So my niece has a next door neighbor who we will call Lewis for the sake of the story, and they are your typical entitled jerk. He's just a very unpleasant guy who will complain about minor infractions, such as cutting your grass and getting lawn clippings on his driveway. But also, he won't hesitate to blow his leaves into her yard when he's cleaning up his yard. Like I said, this guy's a massive jerk. My niece and her little boy went on a 2-week trip to the United Kingdom, and my teenage son house sit for them the first week. And honestly, there were no issues. They were due back on Monday evening, and her ex-husband, who she's still friendly with, stopped by the house to make sure everything was in order, stock her fridge with some essential items, as well as many other things. Well, he was outside and noticed something unusual about a pipe that ran down the outside of the house and emptied into the grass on the side of the house. The AC in their house has a kind of weird setup where there's an outside unit, but also something up on the 3rd floor, and this is attached to the pipe on the house. The condensation runoff from the AC unit flows out of the pipe and empties into the yard. Well, the jerk next door plugged the pipe so that the runoff wouldn't go onto his driveway, which borders my niece's house. The plug pipe caused all of that runoff to back up and spill into her house. It ruined the carpet on the 3rd floor and then dripped down into the bottom 2 floors and into the basement, where it ruined clothing, furniture, toys, and so much more. And my niece's ex didn't realize this yet when he discovered the plug pipe. While he is examining the pipe, Lewis comes out to yell at him for being in his yard. They exchanged some words and Lewis got his stupid feelings hurt, so he ended up calling the cops. Now, I should mention that my niece's ex is Indian, so he's this brown man that Lewis probably mistakes as Middle Eastern. The cops show up, and fortunately, they realize that Lewis is a massive jerk, and they tell him to go back into his house and stop calling the cops on his neighbors for no good reason. And even still at this point, nobody is aware yet of the damage in the house. But when the ex went into the house, he saw the dripping water, realized the extent of the damage, and concluded that the plug pipe caused the destruction. He called the cops back out to see what had happened. And again, the cops were really cool about this. They looked at all the damaged areas, they took pictures, and told my niece's ex to go to the police station in the morning so that they could file a police report, because the tampering on their property was likely criminal, and the amount of damages they have sustained could elevate the charges to a felony. Now, my niece's brother is a lawyer, so he's in touch with the police to work that end of it. And my niece's home insurance agent is a friend of hers. They've already sent out an adjuster to figure out damages, and our greatest hope is that Lewis will face criminal charges for what he did, and that my niece's home insurance company will sue him like crazy to try and recoup the damages. Now, I don't know. I've never been through this before, because I don't have a jerk neighbor who thinks they can go onto their neighbor's property and do whatever they want. I think it all will work out for my niece, but it is a tremendous hassle, and it's infuriating because Lewis is such a jerk, and she has to walk on eggshells to keep him from having some kind of outburst. But now the gloves are off, and we're going to unleash the most annoying poor neighbor behavior that we can on this guy. And I'm over at her house a lot, so we're talking loud music, barking dogs, and yelling kids. My son is a guitarist with an amp that goes all the way up to 11. It won't even take behavior that is obnoxious or disruptive to the entire neighborhood. But because Lewis is such a jerk, he freaks out over anything, so it won't take much time to drive him over the edge. Wow, Lewis literally is a piece of garbage. The amount of damage that he probably caused to this house, especially when you consider water damage, is most likely extremely expensive. Like, that is not a joke. That is like some serious damage that's going to take a long time to figure out, and it's going to take a lot of money just to get it all sorted out. The original poster even clarifies that they're pretty sure it's about $100,000 worth of damage to the house. So hopefully this guy gets nailed down for all the damage he did to the house, because his behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk tries to tell me how to do my job, despite the fact that he literally has no idea what he's talking about. But after being annoyed for several minutes, regardless of me asking him to go away, I decide to maliciously comply, resulting in him getting humiliated in a way I hope he never forgets ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 34-year-old male, and I had always been doing multimedia for my church for years and years. So stuff like displaying lyrics and creating PowerPoint slides are like second nature to me. I was scheduled to take care of the multimedia this morning, so So, as usual, I came and created what was needed. I set up all of the lyrics, I set up the Bible verses, and I put together all the slides that was sent from the speaker before I went to the restroom. When I get back, I saw the guy who we will call Nate, who usually plays the bass, but he wasn't on the schedule today, and I saw that he was having a conversation with another person behind the multimedia station. I went back to my station and started pre-displaying everything on the screen to make sure that I can read everything, and I did that before I noticed that Nate is looking at my station. Well, 5 minutes before we start, Nate suddenly asked what I prepared, and I showed him everything. I showed him the lyrics, the Bible verses, the slides, and I did that just to satisfy his curiosity. Now, as a side note, I don't really like Nate for several reasons, and that's because he believes in a lot of conspiracies that people share on social media, and when someone questioned him, he would just argue nonstop. So most of us just try to avoid starting a conversation with him in general, and that includes me. Also, whenever he's scheduled to play the bass, he turns his amp's volume quite high, and it's so much higher than the other instruments that I can actually feel the vibrations every time he plucks his bass, and the multimedia station is at the very back of the room. Needless to say, he is just super obnoxious. Well, apparently his obnoxiousness is at a high rate today, because as soon as he saw the slides I prepared, he said that the font is too small. He didn't just say, oh, it might be a bit too small. No, he said, it's too small. But I told him it's fine. It's the regular font size we all use week after week. But he literally wouldn't drop it. By this time, the service started, but for some reason, he didn't go to find an empty seat in the audience. Rather, he sat on a stool behind my station, while repeatedly telling me that the font is too small. By this point, I was listening to his font mantra behind me, while also displaying the lyrics for the singers. After a couple of minutes, I asked him if he's planning to sit with the audience, and I kid you not, this is what he said to me. Your font is way too small, you need to increase it. And when he said that, I couldn't believe it. He is so fixated on my slide's font size that he refused to leave me alone until I fulfill his wishes. By this point, even the pastor's wife asked him to please have a seat in the audience, in which he told her that it's better for him to sit there, because if he sat in the audience, he wouldn't be able to see anything. And at that point, I had had enough, so I decided to maliciously comply. While still controlling the displayed lyrics, I also edited the slides while he watched, so I was basically multitasking. Mind you, the service has already begun, so I can't actually display the slides just to make sure. I increased the font so big that the slides looked ridiculous. Before, there were only 10 slides, and one slide contained 6 to 7 lines of 2 to 3 Bible verses with a translation section below it. But now, there are about 40 slides with 15 plus lines that contain only words in each of them. I can barely fit the translation part, and each slide could contain only one verse. It looked totally atrocious. After witnessing his destruction, he patted me on the back and gave me a thumbs up, and then he finally went to find an empty seat. I then looked at the pastor's wife, and even she shook her head. Well, during the sermon, it was extremely awkward. The speaker was having a difficult time reading from the screen because he kept pausing after each line. I also have to switch the slides quicker than before because each only consisted of one verse, which interrupted the speaker's pace. After 10 minutes, the speaker gave up and just read from his own Bible, which most audiences just followed suit. I witnessed many audiences pulled up their own Bible app from their phone and just read it from there, including Nate himself. I then texted Nate. I said to him, "Why are you reading from your phone? I thought you wanted the font larger so you could read from the screen." And in response, he just turned at me and glared at me silently. After the service was finished, the speaker approached me and asked if everything is okay, because the slides didn't look like what I usually made. The pastor's wife approached us and was very apologetic and explained everything. Then we looked over for Nate, in which we couldn't find him in the crowd. So I guess he was too embarrassed to admit his monstrosity, or how entitled and weird he was acting at the moment. And I honestly hope I never deal with him in this capacity ever again. Wow, Nate sounds incredibly obnoxious. This guy not only needs to stay in his lane, but also he needs to get out of the way. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to run the multimedia section of some kind of production, regardless of what it is, if I had some idiot hovering over my shoulder saying, "Oh, you're doing it wrong," I would not only kick him out of my space, but also I would lose my mind on him. Like, nobody's going up to Nate while he's playing the bass and being like, "Oh, your speaker's too loud." Like, that would be super obnoxious and very inappropriate. So hopefully Nate learned his place, and the next time he'll choose to stay away from your station and simply let you do your job. An entitled Karen complains to my company after I forced them to follow the rules of the contract that they signed. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in the security industry, and I'm not going to say where because I fear that someone might recognize the story. The main contract I work is with the local council, and one of the duties I perform is inspecting public halls after they have been rented for a function. And usually it's just private citizens having birthdays, anniversaries, wedding receptions, or something like that. Most of the time there are no problems, and the worst is maybe the space space hasn't been cleaned properly, but that's not a problem for me. I just call the cleaning company the council has a contract with, and they send somebody out, hopefully before the place gets used again. The fee comes off the deposit paid for the haul, so it's no skin off of my nose. On a good day, these inspections take maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and also everybody has already left or is about to leave, and I can just do any little jobs that wouldn't be worth calling in the cleaning crew. Now, another thing that should be noted is the terms and conditions to which everyone has agreed to before being allowed to use the halls. It is blatantly stated that they have a maximum of 60 minutes after their allotted time has finished that they need to vacate the premises. After that, they are considered to be trespassing, and the police can be called to remove them. The worst thing about all of this is when the people hiring the space go over time. I get paid by the job, not the hour. So a booking running long means I'm waiting for them to finish while not getting paid. And it's always the same excuse. Oh, we lost track of time, sorry. But funny enough, it always seems to be the people who are well off who run long. They seem to think they can just throw money at the problem and it will just go away. Take this past weekend, for example. The booking was an 18th birthday party, and it was scheduled to finish surprisingly early for a weekend night. I arrived the stipulated 10 minutes before the booking is supposed to be finished, just to find that the cleaning has only just begun. Now, to be clear, doing a good job requires at least 45 minutes, and these people had so much stuff that it took them at least that long to get their personal stuff out of the building, let alone even making a start on the cleaning. Knowing all this, I go in and I speak to the people who hired the hall, that being the parents of the birthday girl. I know from experience they wouldn't be able to get everything done in time, and I politely suggested they focus on clearing out their own belongings so I could just call the cleaners in. But unfortunately, I wouldn't be here if they listened, now would I? Because no, they insisted that everything will be fine. They said they'll get everything clean and just pay whatever extra fee the council will charge them for the extra time. However long it took them to clean, they would pay for the time, regardless of the fact that they are in breach of the contract they agreed to when they signed it. No matter how I explained they would not be able to finish everything, they insisted on using the full hour they weren't really entitled to get everything done. Now, to clarify, they were supposed to have everything packed up and cleaned, and it all had to be out by the end of their booking, meaning that extra hour was going to cost them big. Needless to say, with 15 minutes to go, they have only just finished cleaning out their gear, having stopped for about 10 minutes or so to take group photos in the process. So I tell them they have run out of time. They need to get all their gear out so I can call in the cleaners, as there was still a lot to be done. Now, at the time, they seemed accepting of everything, though the mother made a point of telling me that she would be calling first thing Monday to talk to the bookings team. In retrospect, this was her threatening to go to my manager, even though I myself am not a council employee. They ended up clearing out just before the hour expired, and I was finally able to begin the inspection. Oh, and the real kicker here was that they scheduled the caterers to pick up their gear 45 minutes after the scheduled end of their booking. I had all but forgotten about the issue until this morning when I received a call from the council officer, who is the liaison between the council and the company I work for. It turns out the mother was true to her word and had actually filed a complaint about the fact that I forced them to adhere to the conditions that they agreed to. Thankfully, the liaison knows me and my work, and once I explained the situation, he agreed I was simply following council protocol. I have no idea how my boss is going to react, as the company only recently took over the contract and they don't know me as well. But hopefully things work out in my favor, because this lady and her family were incredibly entitled. Yeah, it is super obnoxious when people act like this, especially when you're just trying to enforce the rules and they're gonna sit there and be like, fine, I'll follow the rules, but I'm gonna get you in trouble in the process. So honestly, with all things considered, I really hope you don't get in trouble for this. That would be the dumbest reasoning on planet Earth, and I just think that would reflect really badly on your employer, because quite literally, you were just doing your job, and if anything, the fault falls on this family and definitely not with you. Would I be the jerk if I come back to a restaurant just to complain to a manager about a situation that happened 24 hours prior? Because right now, I feel very sad and very humiliated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ate at this supposed Italian restaurant Saturday night, and trust me, you'll understand in a minute why I'm describing it that way, because I wasn't craving typical Italian food, and this was just nearby and I was just kind of hungry. When I got there, I ordered a chicken cordon bleu, and this is a meal I've eaten 100 times on different places, and I know very well how it's supposed to look and taste. Now, I've been to this place before, but more for beverages. I've never really had a meal from them until now. So they give it to me, and I was surprised by the first unfamiliar thing. The chicken was covered with an odd-looking mushroom sauce and onions. It wasn't made properly, and the whole thing just tasted awful. The accompaniment wasn't okay either. The vegetables were not cooked or cleaned properly. The rice came with a cinnamon and dry grape seasoning that not only has nothing to do with the recipe, but only tastes so bad. I was so unsatisfied with the overall dinner, and it wasn't cheap, so I couldn't just let it go. I told the waitress if she could please just change my plate, but she said to me, well, what does changing mean? So I told her I want to exchange it with something else. She then asked me why, and I kindly explained it to her. She then says that they cannot replace a plate unless it has a sour taste. So I tell her that mine is inedible at this point. She then tells me that I should have asked her what they put in it, but I say to her that everybody knows what that specific meal is made of. We exchanged a bit, and she kept interrupting me and refusing to properly listen to me or even hold accountability of her own sayings. I then say, okay, can you please just call your manager? And she says yes. Now I waited for a good while, and she and the cashier were chatting and basically free. And from time to time, they would look at me and just start laughing. Eventually, I got done with it, and I decided to stand up and go to them. Once the girl noticed me, she said to me, I was just going to call him for you, and you came by. And she only said that to try and make herself look less guilty for making me wait that long. And the person that she introduced me to was a cashier and not a manager. And I knew for a fact she wasn't about to call anybody. So I said what I had to say to this guy, and he didn't even respond. Meanwhile, another person comes along who I'm assuming was a chef or something like that, and they said to each other, oh, here's the one who will know what to say to her. And I initiated the conversation all over again. And this guy wasn't any more professional. He didn't give any solution or explanation, and instead of responding in a mature way, he attacked the fact that I said the food was bad and tried to guilt trip me into believing it's forbidden to describe food like that. Now, the entire time I was smiling and trying to be professional, but the act of me smiling and saying friendly things to the waitress only made the whole thing worse, since they both took my kindness for a weakness and they just treated me like a fool. I tell him that I didn't lack respect towards him nor the food, and that I simply expressed my lack of satisfaction about this situation. But this guy just kept blabbering. In a nutshell, I basically told him in the end if he had any solution or anything to suggest, but he just said no in a mocking way and then turned his back and returned inside. The whole staff were then staring at me and mocking me after I paid, and I just said out loud, it feels good to know what restaurant I'll never step foot in ever again. After that, I felt so bad about it that I started to cry back home. I didn't deserve this kind of humiliation. Now, I'm someone who is very sensitive, and the vast majority of the words that I should have said didn't come to my mind in the heat of the moment. Now that I'm much less stressed about it, I plan to go there and ask for an apology, but from the actual manager and not from anyone else. They already tried to fool me, and I don't want that to happen again. And of course, I'm never eating there ever again. So would I be the jerk if I did this? And what can I do to feel better about this and less guilty for not responding properly and defending myself? I later checked online if this wasn't just a singular incident, and many comments online confirmed that they had a nightmare dealing with this specific restaurant. What should I do? First of all, I'm so sorry that they treated you that way, but also now's your time to get back at them. For starters, you would not be the jerk for complaining because the way they treated you was completely out of line. Like, that is unacceptable to the highest degree, and I just think it's the right thing for you to do to complain in this scenario. Like, your server didn't do the job right at all. In fact, she didn't even put any effort into doing her job. I mean, any server would happily try to exchange the plate for something else, especially if the customer knows right off the bat that the meal sucks. It would have been nothing for that server to switch that out and be like, oh, I'm so sorry the food sucks, let me get you something else. But instead, she and her coworkers just made fun of you the entire time. That is not fair, and in my opinion, you absolutely should complain, because this kind of humiliating treatment should not go unpunished. My entitled manager tries to force my friend to use all his vacation time as some kind of power play to show how good of a manager he really is. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so a new manager was hired for our team, and quickly he wanted to impose his way of doing things, namely having daily stand-up meetings, people having lunch at different times, as well as several other unpopular things. So needless to say, he did not start off well with most people in our team. Then he started going after people who had accumulated annual leave. And for reference, in Australia, we get 20 days annual leave per year. Now, I had none left, so it was no problem for me, but this friend of mine had been working there for nearly 8 years and never took a day off, meaning that he had months worth of annual leave. This manager wanted to make an example of him and ordered him to plan out vacations or even to sell back to the company some of that time, which is perfectly legal but with tons of conditions. My friend didn't want to take any time off, but was being pressured constantly by our manager, and this was every day at our stand-up meetings. The first item would always be pending annual leave and would just fixate on my friend. One day, my friend just had enough of this guy and gave him two options. He told him he wanted to go for extended holidays back to his country and and he wanted to take it all at once, or he's going to sell the whole thing back to the company. Well, the manager accepted the first option, only to come back the next day after checking with his manager to say that wasn't possible, as he would have to go for nearly 6 months, and we had plenty of projects in the pipeline. He then said he'll have to sell the entire thing back to the company. But then he came back the next day after checking with HR, and one of the conditions says that you can only sell a maximum of 20 days. So this is where his malicious compliance came into play. From that day onwards, every morning my friend started emailing our manager while also sending this to HR and the head of the department, asking him for an update on his annual leave arrangements, stating he had given him the option he was looking for and was waiting for his response. He would also bring it up and push for an answer every day at our stand-up meetings, and while he never got a reply from our manager, weeks later he did get a reply from the head of our department, indicating that they will review other options and let him know, but they never did. Well, the following year, my friend had his first daughter and ended up taking an extended leave for about 3 months. Also, the pushy manager eventually resigned as he never felt comfortable in the team and found another job somewhere else. And honestly, all I can say is good riddance, because that guy was an absolute nightmare to deal with. How ignorant and stupid can somebody be where they would not only try to deny somebody's accumulated time off, but also try to shortchange them when they try to sell it back to the company? Like, that is insane. That would make me so frustrated and angry, especially if I worked there. And the way this manager came into this new job is just so annoying. And it's unfortunately something that's pretty typical of new managers. They walk in headstrong and try to change everything, instead of trying to get the pulse of the room and figure out, okay, what really does need to be changed. Like, this guy was trying to make an example out of somebody, but he's the one that ended up quitting at the end of the day. So it kind of makes sense why he didn't feel comfortable with the team. He literally made himself a villain right off the bat. So good for your friend for stepping up and not taking any of this guy's garbage, because the way he was acting was completely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.